What a special episode of the Big Brown Breakdown, all the way from Canada. To me, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, one of the best in the business. When I put this out on social media, I'm like, what do I call this man? I called you an MMA guru. MMA guru. Yeah. There's very few guys who can break down the sweet science of mixed martial arts better than you, sir.
Thank you.
This is Robin Black, everybody.
Thank you, man. That really fucking means a lot. It really means a lot to me, man. I love the thing that I do. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. All the time. This is my purpose in the world. I love doing it. And when people appreciate it, it really does mean a lot to me, man.
And I told you off air, I said, whenever I want a breakdown of a fight, when I want to get as detailed as possible, and you do it in such a poetic way. I was watching, I'm like, do you, and if you guys subscribe to his YouTube channel and
Fight Network YouTube channel is where a lot
that's
of our
where all
stuff
your
is.
breakdowns are, right?
Yep.
So if you guys want to see it, do you write those out before? Is that just off the top of the head? How are you? What's your preparation for that?
It's all different, and sometimes they're ideas that happened months and months and months ago, and sometimes they're things that I'm reading. I'm trying to think non-linearly. So when you look at fighting, people talk about the surface thing. You know, who's this guy going to fight next? What's the title shot? And so forth. Those are all mechanisms. The belt, all of those are just mechanisms to, if you're interested in fighting, but you're not really looking that deep, you can use any of these mechanisms to get people excited. Then you can go a little bit deeper, and there's the fight itself. And at first, you start to identify, oh, that's a leg kick, that's a punch. When you're first starting to be a connoisseur of fighting. And then a little bit later, you start thinking, oh, how do they move? And then you realize that the punches and the kicks are just one thing. What are they experiencing emotionally? What are they feeling? What's the meaning in this? Mm-hmm. What's the emotion? What's happening physiologically? What's happening psychologically? What's happening emotionally? How are they related in 3 dimensions in space? All of this shit. And the deeper you get into it, the more interesting it becomes and the more questions pop up. And I just keep following the questions. But then you get to a point that you just break down techniques, and that started to get boring to me. It started to get repetitive. I'm like, am I just going to say it's about the checking the kick to the right hand? Am I going to do that forever now? Mm-hmm. So then I started to explore language, and then poetry, and then, you know, the limitations of language. And then I see beauty in it. Like, it's the fucking most beautiful thing. So when you say poetic, that really does mean a lot to me, because I think it's art to me. Fighting is art, and I want to be the guy to show people that it's art.
Suck it, Meryl Streep.
Well, yeah. I mean,
can you imagine? Yeah. That's not an art. Yeah. I was like, this bitch, are you serious?
First of all, just start with the issue that art sometimes is repellent. Art sometimes makes you feel sick to your stomach. It can disgust you. It can scare you. If you have that reaction to it, right there, it's probably art. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you, man. I was watching last night, late in bed, getting ready for this interview. I was watching your breakdown of Jorge Masvidal, and you compared him to like water, like his movement, and we'll get into it when we break down him and Don Cerrone. Yeah. And you showed a clip of Bruce Lee and him talking about being water, and water becomes the cup. Water becomes, the container it's in. Mm-hmm. And it was so special, man. Yeah, you got the Bruce Lee tattoo. Balls deep in Bruce Lee.
I have 2 Bruce Lee tattoos.
Oh, that's
and
pretty
one
dope,
of them
man.
says crash. Water can crash. Yeah. And one of them says flow, and it flows into a gentle water, and this one flows into a crashing water. Balls deep.
He breaks it down, too. Yeah. He's like, so be like water, crash and flow. Yeah. And you were comparing him to Masvidal, and he gave this poetic closing speech. And I was like, good God, man. And people forget how much of a beast Bruce Lee was. Like his analytics on fighting, and he was the pioneer in the original. And when you showed that video, I was like, this dude just dropped some knowledge about Masvidal. I was like, all right, and we'll get into that because I have my thoughts on Masvidal Cowboy. Yeah. And then you incorporated Bruce Lee, showed a speech of Bruce Lee, and then you end with your poetic notes, and I was like, this motherfucker's doing it right.
Thank you, man. I also put some Kimbo Slice in the same video as Bruce Lee.
Yeah, you did. How dare you?
Yeah, I know, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Because you showed, and I think that's what makes the Fight Network that you're on special, and I wish there was something like that in America. There's not. You know, we have UFC Tonight, but that's very suit, and that's very, I talk like this, and I'm going to pick this fighter, and you pick the opposite fighter, because that makes for good TV, and we have producers, and we're in suits, and let's try to ad-lib and have fun. Oh, my God, it's charades with Thompson, you know? So I've been in those meetings, and it's very structured. Not that Fight Network's not structured, but you broke down a video of Jorge Masvidal in a backyard street brawl. And Kimbo Slice was in the back.
And I loved it.
I was like, look at this shit. And you were I mean, it wasn't a reach where you're like, see how he slips the left hook. You know? And I was like, this dude's breaking out a street fight.
Well, this is what I love doing. Like, literally, my biggest, I have no complaints in my life. I'm the fucking happiest guy going because I'm challenged every day to do the thing I love doing. The complaint my wife has is that I have nothing else.
Yes.
That this is and
you're obsessed with it.
Yes, and she can see how passionate I am about it, and she can see that I'm drawing artistic inspiration from it, and she can see that it's affecting my philosophies in life in good ways about growth and striving for things and understanding what in the world you can control and not control. I mean, fighting teaches you those things.
That's mixed martial arts, sir.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's why when I'm looking at it, and I used to get frustrated when I would watch coverage and it would be talking about a Twitter beef or whatever. Now I don't get frustrated. I realize people all have their own path and they can all choose to enjoy what they want to enjoy. But I want people to see it the way that I see it. Mm-hmm. This deep, meaningful moment in time where two geniuses who have dedicated every minute of their life come together and create this painting. And whether somebody calls it art or not, I was speaking, this is fucking all I talk about, and that's all I want to talk about. Yeah. But I was in a bar last night. I flew in from Vegas, and I went down and I had a beer and a tequila. I really like tequila. And this girl started talking to me, and she asked me what I did, and I started talking about what I do. And she goes, do you talk about it this way? And I said, yeah. Like I was talking about meaning and artistic expression and all this. She goes, wow, that's really cool. And she goes, but I don't think it's art. And I said, why not? She goes, well, art doesn't hurt people. And I said, art doesn't hurt people. The artists feel the pain. Yes. The artists are being hurt. Artists hurt themselves all the time. Artists go out and my wife is a singer and an actor, and she played a part where the baby died and she lost her. She would cry every night in that moment. She felt pain to express that. Artists of all kinds feel pain. So that, again, whether or not it's art, I will make the argument forever, and I'm 100% certain that I am right, that this is high art.
Yeah, at the highest level, with the highest stakes.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think, you know, being a former fighter and going through kind of the whole experience, I view it as an art, but I also realize the repercussions. Like I realize anyone who gets in there, they deserve so much respect because they can overcome certain things in life I don't think a lot of others can. Just to enter into that octagon and the mental battle you have with yourself, and you fought, you know how it is. The mixed martial arts, I would say, is the hardest sport in the world, just because mentally it's a different animal. I've played football at the highest level, you know, college football, and it's just a different animal. It really is, man. And there's so many X factors. And how did your camp go? How's your body feeling for this one particular night? Yeah. And you're not going to get a playoff. There's going to be no timeouts. You got 15 minutes. You have 1 minute break in between there to maybe make some changes. But really, there's not too many changes.
Going out and fighting. We'll talk again. That makes me think of Jorge Masvidal, and there's other guys like that. And a subset of my job is to make people see that Cub Swanson's very special, or Jorge Masvidal's very special. You know, they don't always see that. They see the people that are marketed in a certain way, or that speak a certain way, or that look a certain way. But that moment in the fight. I was going to wear a Chael Sonnen shirt today because in support of Chael.
Yes.
Because I fucking love Chael.
Me too. I love Chael. He was just on here 2 weeks ago.
I saw it.
Or last week.
I love that man. He's a really, really good man. Him, Joe, and other guys have really helped me and been supportive and liked what I did and said, hey, how do we get you going other places? And that's been really kind. And Chael's one of those guys. And I love Chael. And that moment in there, and like say Dan Hardy, who's a good friend, I admire him a lot. He was really hard on Chael in that fight.
Yeah, didn't he say it was more scripted than a Britney Spears concert?
He did, but later, and
there's no going back after that, brother. I don't care what he said out there. There's really no. I love Dan too. I love Dan. He knows that. But once you blast that out, there's no I wasn't serious.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Twitter. Someone will respond to something Dan or anybody wrote forever. And the moments in time that you go through life, you are many different things. Sometimes you are an asshole. Yeah. Sometimes you are a nice person. Sometimes you're kind. And sometimes you're just not thinking.
Yeah.
And yet, somebody will look at that tweet forever. It's like, oh, Dan said this. Dan, I know what he really thinks.
And define you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dan literally might have done this. So then later when he was talking about it, I saw a little clip of it. And he was like, I thought he was going to fight. And he was hard on him, and I get it. And I realized in that moment, Dan is different than me and you and Chael, what you're describing to some degree. He's maybe never had that moment where his brain sells him out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That because people don't get it. They're like, and Dan, who's a genius, because he's one human being and his perspective of the world, he's never had it to the level that Chael may have experienced it, or that I've experienced, or that other, where in that moment you want to win and you want to succeed and you want so badly to do well. And for some reason, the lizard part of your brain fucking sells you out.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're saying, I don't want to fight. Oh, I want to tap. Oh, I don't want. Your fucking brain sells you out in that moment. And there's no way to prepare for that. And so Chael, who again I love, and Dan, who I love, I just realized that they're very different people, and we all have different. Our perspective is only our own, And when you watch, the more information you have, the better. But some of that information you have to have personally, and most people can never understand what it's like to be terrified or to fail or give up. And seconds later, you're like, "Why the fuck did I give up? Why did I do that?" But in that moment, that. It is what it is. You are what you are in your preparation, in your life, and the day, and the moment, and what you thought, and I'm really interested in this in the psych side now, and I do a lot of study of it now, and it is fascinating.
Super fascinating because, and to your point and I don't think people should crucify Dan Hardy because I also, as a former fighter, I watched. I went, that was a little fishy at first. I was backstage. I think I was in Portland. And I watched it, and I went, man, that is a little fishy. What's going on there? Because I've trained with Chael, I've trained with Tito, and I've had I've had both their backs.
Yeah.
And Chael, and he's done the right things. I'm like, what is going on here? But then you got to add in ring rust.
Yeah.
You got to add in he hasn't fought. Age.
Yeah, his hormones. If he was on
TRT, all that. Take all that out.
Yeah.
He hasn't. And when we talked about when he was on the show, the Big Brown Breakdown, I think number 7, when he was on here. I go, are you a little worried because there's ring rust?
Yeah.
But then with you, it's not like you're going to get a warm up fight. You're on you're the first fight of the main card.
Yeah.
You got to sell this as the main event, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's Tito's last fight, so it's not like you're just taking time off and walking and get a warm up fight. I mean, it's 0 to 100 for you. So, and that ring rust is real. And he goes, yeah, but I chalk it up to Dominic Cruz. I went, Dominic Cruz, the outlier here.
Yeah,
that most
100%.
People are not like that.
No,
because for me,
Dom did this work, hard work.
Dom's a genius when it comes to that. But I think. And I would complain about this, and I think this is what makes Cowboy special. And again, we'll get into that when we break down Cowboy. But as a heavyweight, for me, even though I fought 3 times a year, it wasn't enough because it felt like the Super Bowl every single time where there's so much pressure. And it's like, God, I haven't been in there in 4 months. This is crazy. And then for Chael, take 3 years.
And to physically be a different man now. He's 39 years old, and your endocrine system takes a beating, whether it's TRT or when he was dinged for things. And that's a whole other conversation. Guys come through a world where there's no testing, and my opponent's probably on drugs.
Yes.
You make a call to the doctor. You got to fight Vanderlei in Japan?
Yes.
You're going to fight Vanderlei in Japan. You look at his last thing, it's just fucking veins everywhere. You call your doctor, and you say, what should I do, doc?
100%.
So none of these guys should be judged from that era for failing a drug test. Now you should, because now is the deal. Now it's been laid out. I've known fighters that have told me they moved to this new gym, and then they're training, and they're like, holy fuck, so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so.
It's very easy to see.
I cannot. I'm technically better than them, but they overwhelm me when I train with them. They train 14 times a week, and I do 8. They're bigger and they're stronger, and they're getting better because of the frequency that they can train and recover.
More reps.
And guys, who never would have done it are like, I got to go see the strength and conditioning guy that they walk out of the back carrying a bag. And I have to see that guy. So that's easy to understand. So you can't crucify people in that era for doing that. But it does affect your endocrine system. Michael Bisping is the champ now because he never did steroids ever.
So look at the champs. Look at Stipe.
Yeah.
Michael Bisping. You look at these guys and look who Stipe's beat. A lot of guys who have had TRT exemptions.
Yeah.
I mean, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, exactly. McGregor's clean. Yeah. Weidman was the champ. He's a clean fighter. And they're all cleanish now, or clean-esque.
I don't think sport ever be clean.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as close to clean. This is good. This is very, very good where it is at right now. But they're all. But the thing is, just not that well. And we'll use Vitor because he's the easy example.
He's the poster boy.
Yeah, Vitor was better than you because he was on steroids. Now it's not just that he goes back down to normal. He goes down to a depleted guy. He's damaged his endocrine system.
But again, back to the mental point is. When you feel like Superman wearing those things. And now imagine not having that shield that you've always had in the octagon.
Armor.
Yeah. And you're like, God dang, what am I going to do? Now you got to fight these monsters who were not using that and have that shield.
Exactly. And so now Bisping isn't just on an even playing field. Some of these guys have dropped beneath him now, psychologically and physically. So, but wherever that was, we were talking about something about Chael.
We were talking about Chael. Back to Chael. I think for Chael, I chalk up to ring rust, the TRT, and I just think, to your point with how much of a mental game it is, I think he got there, and Chael has explained to me, behind closed doors and even on the show that when he fought Anderson Silva and he was winning for 4.5 rounds. He had a mental block when he was in his guard going, I'm going to get tapped out. It's just a matter of time. He's going to tap me out. Man, this sucks. I'm going to get tapped out. And he's beating them. So you almost, what you think comes true a lot of times. That's 100%. The way the world works. So he found an out and got tapped out in that Anderson Silva fight. And it was a tight, armbar triangle choke. I think something happened in the same fight because he knows when it goes to the ground, jiu-jitsu's not his forte. Even though it's Tito, and people forget Tito's a bit of a monster. He can be in Abu Dhabi. He's been doing it forever. And I think when Tito got his back and the lights were on him, he's the main event. He kind of shit his pants and went,
exactly.
Oh, here we go. I'm going to get tapped out. Because I look, I'm like, he's not even doing the right defense. He's not turning away from the choke.
His brain sold him out.
Yep.
His brain sold him out.
I think you chalk up to that. The only weird thing is in that entire fight, and if you look at all the outliers here and everything that's going on, there's no reason why Chael would take a fall. There's no reason these guys would fake it. At third level, there's no reason. Scott Coker's background, none of this adds up. I love the conspiracy theories. The only weird thing is when you see Tito, he goes he has him in that front headlock.
He touches him?
And he touches his glove,
so
right?
There's two.
That was the only thing I was like, all right, well, what can you do?
So, and people are like, he was telling him to let go of the choke. If it's a fake choke, you don't have to fucking tell him to let go.
No, you know what I mean? Why would you do that?
It just doesn't add up.
I think it was just his natural reaction. I think he was going to hand fight, and then it was almost like a tap, not a tap to the choke, but just a hand fight. And he was like, he's letting go, I'm back out.
Exactly.
It just added to the fuel to the fire where you're like, God damn it, they don't need that. But the ratings.
Yeah, big
2.2 million, I think.
People want to watch that. People want to. They know those guys' names. They know their names. And that makes a difference. We have conversations about that kind of stuff all the time at Fight Network, like Michael Chandler or Paul Daly. These guys, they're awesome fucking fighters.
Amazing.
Michael Chandler is one of the five best lightweights in the world. He could be the best. He could be.
I mean,
he's a
remember,
genius.
he beat Eddie Alvarez, who was the champ. I mean, Michael Chandler is hands down top 5. 155
100%.
in the world. Yes.
And I want to watch him anytime he fights. I want to break his stuff down. I enjoy it. And in theory, some of these people who watch Chael and Tito or watch Kimbo Slice might be turned on to some of these guys. But I don't know if that's ever been proven to be so.
I agree.
So this idea that we always put, when there's a freak show fight, see that it lets people see these good fighters. I don't know that that's ever actually true. It's just an argument that you make. Now, the Tito and Chael on paper wasn't a freak show fight. It was a fun fight. Older guys going to fight kind of an old school.
Two legends.
Overhands to a takedown to some ground and pound. And, ground and pound's a term I never use. I don't even know how that came out. I literally never use that.
Why not?
I never use it.
Why not?
There's
you
a
hate that
ton
term?
of these terms that to me, so we were talking about poetry and language. You start to examine, so you're going through your life doing your job and you hit plateaus. And for me, you get a plateau. You're like, well, I want to get better at this. How do I? What's the limit here? Is it how I'm thinking? Is it how I'm working? And you realize that language is limiting. And there's certain things, when you say ground and pound as a catch-all phrase, you don't have to analyze what's happening.
Yeah.
And I fucking never use that term. There's an uppercut from this angle. He's grabbing this to use that. This is not something we just go, we're describing everything, but when it happens here, we use this one interchangeable term for all
things. Put an umbrella over it.
We have now purposefully not examined, taught, studied, and fallen in love with this entire martial art on the ground. So I never use that
It's a
term.
sellout.
Yeah.
And I learned that in stand-up. You know, I do stand-up a lot now, at least 2-3 times a week, and we do our live shows. And I found myself, if I couldn't think of a more creative word, I found myself replacing it with cuss words.
Yeah.
With cuss words. And
crutch.
My uncle who passed away goes, man, you don't need to cuss.
Yeah.
You're too smart for that.
Yeah.
It's an out. And Brian said the same thing. He goes, I want you to work on. This is, a year and a half ago. Now there's not too much cussing in my stand-up. He goes, I want you, if you think, replace it with something else. Do me a favor. Try not to cuss at all. There's certain times you can use it and it's funny.
And it'll be funnier if you rarely use
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, it's almost a cop-out.
Yeah,
Ground and pound, well, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entire martial art.
It's another phase of the game.
100%. And maybe because we've never looked at it deeper. So when I call fights, I've called 400 shows. Plus, 400 plus. Me and Ramdeen together have probably called 400. And I worked with Morrow and I worked with Michael Chevello and those guys.
Nice.
Both of those guys.
I love Chevello.
Me too. I love Chevello. I did either 2 or 3 shows with him for the Score Fighting Series up in Canada. And then that show went out of business. But I really want to work with Mike.
Is Mike, is he still doing Access fights on
Yeah, he's doing that. And he's really good. And really, like, when you're wandering through life, like even when I was coming in to hang out with you, we met before and we know each other. But this is going to be fun, and I knew it was going to be fun, but partly, like, you get new ideas from other people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You learn things from interacting with people. Or we'll walk out of here, and maybe I met Agent A, and she knows somebody, and, like, you just have to meet people, and you have to talk to them. I talk to strangers now. That's a thing. That's a new thing. Maybe it's not the best idea all the time.
It depends where you're at.
Yeah. I was on a plane. I like to talk to the people next to me on a plane. So last night I'm on a plane, and I just start talking to this girl there, and she says she's from Vegas. She goes, oh, you work in fighting? Do you know Ryan Couture? I'm like, yeah, I know Ryan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, suddenly we have a conversation. But, or you learn something that can literally change your life. Like, I do a podcast with this guy, David Mullins. It's a sports psychology podcast.
And is David Mullins a sports psychiatrist?
For John Kavanagh and SBG Ireland and a lot of other fighters. Those are the only ones he talks about publicly. To me, I know some of the high-level fighters he works with, but part of the deal is he doesn't talk about them, and that's
fair.
He wouldn't want to anyways.
No, most fighters, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, most fighters don't want it getting out there.
Yeah, even though now the percentage that are at least understanding that this is a really important thing is higher. But so I reached out to him just because I like reaching out to people. So I already had a really good friend, Dr. David Klonsky, who's a professor of psychology at the University of British Columbia. And together we were looking at, and we still are, writing a book on combat sports psychology together. So I'm learning a lot, and he's a good friend, and we hang out. So I reach out to this guy, Mullins, just online, and it turns out he moved to Toronto and because he fell in love with a girl from Toronto.
Awesome.
So I hang out, we have some drinks, and we start this podcast. And one thing in the very first episode that comes up is this idea of controllables versus non-controllables, a starting point of how to train your mind to fight or do anything. We're going to look at the things you can control. You can control the shape you're in. You can control how hard you work. You can control how you study. We're going to really identify it. Then we're going to identify the non-controllables.
Which are the scariest.
Yeah.
Which is the scariest stuff.
Yeah. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know what the audience is going to do. You don't know how you're going to wake up that morning. The non-controllables we're going to learn to ignore. And we're going to concentrate hard on the controllables.
Is that possible?
It becomes better and better. And so we become friends. We make this cool podcast. People like it. It's great. The podcast is great. I love doing it. But that thing changed the way I thought for the next 2 years. Now, when I go through, and slowly led me to reading some other books on that idea, training to do it more, realizing when I'm worrying about the non-controllables and then resetting yourself, it's not possible to do it always, but it's possible to get way better at it, like anything. So now, I'm like, oh, is Fox going to hire me for this thing after I talk to them? Will Dana give me more work? Am I ever going to commentate the UFC, which is what I want?
You can't
non-fucking controllables. What's controllables? I'll get better every fucking day. I'll keep studying. I'll find new ideas and new concepts to bring over to fighting. I'll train. I'll study, optimize how I work and that's all controllables.
You're making yourself, and it's so crazy you bring this up. I had this exact conversation with Brian Cal, my agent, last night. because you're making yourself undeniable, where they're like, we have to have Robin Black. And why they don't have you on everything, I have no idea. When I look at the... Yeah, I'll be your goddamn agent. This is an easy sell,
let's make
sir.
this deal right
this
now.
Is an easy sell. Dana, call me, brother. This is a super easy sell.
I don't think Dana's going to call you, is he?
I don't know, man. You know him better than I do.
I saw
now.
him yesterday, and he was really excited to see me. I was at the UFC doing some work, and every time I'm talking to somebody there, they always wanted me to do a little more stuff, which is cool, and they like my stuff. But I just haven't broken through to sit at Anik, Stan, Bisping, all those guys. Dude, you should be sitting up here with us, which is really kind of them. But I haven't broken through in whatever person that is that needs to make that call.
I think it's just more about them getting familiar with you, and I'm super critical. And some people call me a hater. I call myself a critical thinker. And I'm telling you, man, it's nothing against anyone they have up there right now. You're better than anyone they have in there.
Well,
anyone, bro.
That is kind.
And it's very few. You know, on the Big Brown Breakdown, we have all these fighters that want to come in and analyst stuff like that. And you're the guy when you're like, hey, man, I'm going to be in LA. I was like, oh, hell yeah. I text Rogan, like, bro, I got fucking Robin Black coming on.
That is so
You know
cool,
what I'm saying?
Man.
Like,
this
beast.
Yeah.
But to your point with things
controllable.
Controls. And I know I go on these weird tangents.
So that's what I do.
I do these weird tangents. Really I get my brains weird.
But that's how you fucking come up with other ideas.
Yeah, it really is.
Like you mine out onto something. You chase the rabbit hole down. You suddenly, and I mostly do it with fighting, you suddenly see this one thing. What is it? And for the next 10 days, it's just study, research, find who knows the most about it. What does it really mean? What does it mean philosophically? Is it real? If it's not real and you think all of it and you go down rabbit holes, you get somewhere, you get a nugget. You started out asking me about how you make breakdowns. That nugget may be part of this breakdown, might be part of one in 4 months. It might lead to a new idea.
But what I like what you're doing is you're not regurgitating material that I've heard on these other shows. You're taking that data wherever you're getting it from and you're making it your own. And I think it's so special this day and age to have real content that isn't just regurgitating something that you've seen from statistics or Wikipedia or a forum. To me, having a creative opinion that's yours and you own it, that's what people can relate to. Because they go, oh, well, all right, so they're just going to talk about wins and losses and stuff. I can get that anyway.
Yeah, and that's what took me to technique stuff. And then I got to the point, now a lot of people are good at that. And I'm like, well, now you can get that anywhere. Yeah. I have to go further than that.
You just adapted, but you have the ability to adapt. The reason why a lot of people don't go down those rabbit holes, they don't have
it's
the
scary.
mental. It's scary, and it takes a certain kind of mindset and capabilities. Let's be real. You have a unique set of skills.
Thank you. I'm so curious about it. Like literally yesterday, I was working at the UFC. Then I was on the phone with a friend doing a podcast. I'm hanging out here with you. I'm going to go see, like, I'm just traveling around breaking down fucking fights.
Yeah, your life's
for
pretty
a
awesome.
living. Yeah. The thing I'm compelled to do that I love doing, that if I had another job, I'd go home and do, I'm now just traveling around doing
Making a living doing it.
Yeah, and that's a controllable. But if I'm going to sit on the UFC Tonight desk, or if they're going to ever have me commentate fights. I was commentating Shooto Brazil, which the UFC was doing. So I was coming down to LA.
That was on Fight Pass, yeah.
And their people produced it. And that's how they got cruised to the Dominic. They saw how good of a commentator he was. He did 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
So I did 4 of those. So I thought I was in the stream. But then when it's sold, they're not doing Shooto Brazil. So I'm not in the stream right now.
I think it's just them getting familiar with it, and you can't control it.
Yeah, it's non-controllable. Controllable is study, get better, learn more, expand it, grow, find the next layer.
Keep on.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to do? And to that point, it's funny we bring this up because I shot 2 pilots for TV shows. And one show I've been waiting for 16 months to hear about. And it's up and down this. And I'm hearing from this big executive and from my manager, my agent, all this stuff. And then finally last night, I get an email and they say, it's not going to happen for this reason. It had nothing to do with me. There's all these other variables I can't control. And I was bummed out. I was super bummed out. I'm like, that'd been so fun, man. Completely different than what I do here. It'd been so fun. And I was super bummed out. Yeah. I talked to Brian. Brian said, let me tell you something, man. What you have to do is you're on the right path. You got to keep on.
That's right.
Keep on. That has nothing to do with you. Yeah. I understand you're bummed out, and that's fine, and it's because you want it that bad. He goes, but there's nothing. This is Hollywood. This is entertainment. Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
He's exactly right. There's nothing you can do except get even better, enjoy it even more, get even passionate, get even smarter, drive, get more driven, sleep better, be fitter, eat better, optimize your day better, understand your schedule better. All of those things you can do.
Yeah.
And all of those things, when all put together, will eventually lead you to the thing you want to do.
Yep.
And in the meantime, you'll be smarter, happier, more successful. Like the shit, so I told you this conversation began by making a new friend, this idea of controllables and non-controllables. Now he's a very, very close friend, but he also opened this door to me now that I study and look, and it's a philosophy of my life. And if, let's say, whatever, my goal is to commentate the UFC. I want to live in Toronto, work for Fight Network, make the coolest shit, which we all make with all my friends, and travel on the weekends and commentate the fucking UFC. That's what I want to do. But I'm not sitting there going, how do I make that happen? I'm sitting there going, if I get good enough and driven enough and people like it enough and improve, and where I find the weaknesses, blame myself for them and find how to fix them, that'll likely happen. And if it doesn't, on the off chance that it doesn't, my life will be killer and I will have done lots of fun and exciting things. So the goal itself, although you need to be aware of it, you can't be, people say be goal oriented, you got to be process oriented. Mm-hmm. The goal, it sucks when you find out your pilot didn't happen. Yeah. Or, a friend of mine at Fox, I really like those guys. They're like, right now's not the right fit for you. Well, fuck, I live in Toronto doing super cool things, making cool things for the UFC that my friends at Fight Network get to make there. So Fight Network gets paid. They're happy. My friends are happy. We do cool shit. I'm able to do you couldn't put in that Bruce Lee clip or Kimbo Slice on another thing.
No. But I was watching this dude is breaking down a backyard brawl right now.
Could I do that?
And doing it artistically and credible. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, this dude's really breaking down Masvidal in the backyard right now.
But if you're process oriented, your life will be probably way better. And I had conflict a couple of years ago at different stages with people at work or different things. Now I almost never have it because you're in the flow. You're in the river.
I think for you, you're on the right path. And I think it's just it's literally a matter of time. And we were talking off air before this. I said for you, it's just finding that right vehicle. There's so many different avenues of ways you can get fight news and breakdown stuff like that. And as soon as not that Fight Network's not the right vehicle. What you're doing now, it's not the right. I'm not saying that's not the right vehicle. Yeah. I'm saying as far as you being what I think you should be, that's just a matter of the right people going, oh my God, that guy's a beast. We don't have anyone who breaks it down like that. And then you get fucking called up like a spaceship and it's off to the races.
And all that kind of stuff is really cool. But I think it starts with wanting to make shit that you love and are really proud of. And that you're
talking about passion, brother.
Yeah.
It has to be. It has to be your passion. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. Yeah. You're just not.
So you're a young fighter and you're coming up. And everybody around you is like, you're really good. And they know because they've trained other fighters. Yeah. And you get to the UFC level. Now that 400 really fucking good. Then you get to the top 20. You got to be better than all those fuckers. And all of them, why are they there? Because they were all fucking driven.
Yep.
Every single one of them was driven. They were motivated. They learned. When they found plateaus, they figured out how to get through them through some adjustment, physical, mental training, structural, whatever. And they just kept going. And now you're in there with the best of the best of the best. And to go from really great to the greatest is the hardest jump of all.
That's why I retired.
Yeah.
That's why I retired. Rogan and I had that infamous talk on his podcast, but afterwards, Rogan just said he knew I had all these other offers from all these coaches. For whatever reason, I'm likable as far as camps and other amongst the fighters. And so many people reach out to help me.
The biggest thing for that I pick up off you like what you do, you're good at it, but you're likable. Yeah. Like you just have people would want to hang out with you and talk to you and hear your voice and see you do shit.
Yeah, so all these
we're jerking each other off.
Yeah, we are, man. I'll take it though, brother. It's rare around here, but the listener's like, all right.
Yeah. But, you think he's great and he thinks you're great.
I want you to fucking go start your own podcast.
Exactly.
But we should, man. So I had all these different high-level coaches, Dwayne Ludwig, Jackson, all these guys going, dude, come over here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you can be, we see the potential. Come over here. And Roman goes, you have these high-level guys reaching out to you, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, would you move and everything to get better and go there? I went, I wouldn't. And he goes, well, there's guys in the top 10 who would give their left leg to do that. I went, you're right, man.
Yeah.
And he goes, you can do all this other stuff, man. You can be great at all this other stuff. They can't. And I went, you're right, man. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm fucking done.
Fuck, it's really good that you were able to being decisive is another one of those things. Being decisive is hard.
Scary.
It's because
the unknown, back to the unknowns.
Well, wherever you're going, Whatever is happening in every phase of your life, when there's a decision, an entire new spider web of life is this way or this way. That's terrifying to most people. But once you get to the point that you're like, well, whatever it is, there's going to be good and there's going to be challenging, there's going to be hard, there'll be sad, there'll be tragedy, it'll be awesome. All of those things are going to happen either way, and I'm going to get smarter and better and try to actualize myself better to handle whichever way it
And that's trusting the process.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Chin, let's jump into some of these MMA events, man.
Sounds good.
There's in MMA. There's, I mean, this is a once a week show. There's never a lack of events.
Yeah,
like there's always something going on in MMA world.
And that is happening in every single phase of everything. So if you're a fight person, you're like, shit, I can just absorb fighting all day.
Yeah.
I'll listen if I can Rob Black's podcast. And
Yep.
I'm going to watch Brendan Schaub. And I've got these 7 things and then this and then 20 websites all day, all the time. So people have become so specialized. Like, some people who like football and fighting and video games and music and stuff. And you, Joe, I'm always really impressed by people who can do many things, because I do one thing as well as I can forever. So I'm always really impressed by it. But a lot of people, if they're gamers, it's just video game shit.
Yes.
Video game clothing, video game things, video game sports, playing video games, reading about video games. And there's a lot of fight people that's all they do too. And we know the 250,000 of them, they watch every pay-per-view. When you see 1.5 million, that's my mom.
Yeah.
My mom fucking watched Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
She did. And then after, and I saw her in Vegas, and my mom has this little voice thing, one part of her vocal cord is weird. And she goes, I didn't like that Brazilian lady. She was so rude to Ronda. And I'm like,
by rude, do you mean punched in the face?
I didn't like what she said after either. And I'm like, what the like, my mom's in her 70s, and she thinks it's cool that when I was a kid, they took me an hour and a half each way 3 times a week to study Taekwondo.
That's awesome.
Because that's the only thing I was interested in.
That's so cool, man.
And so, they take pride in the fact that I've ended up really doing the thing that I love to do and doing it as well as I can.
And Taekwondo played a huge role in that, because it allowed you to learn the arts and learn martial arts and dive into that world.
And study it and be in love with it. I did gymnastics first, and then I did high diving, flipping, and it was super cool. Understanding how to move your body. And then once I wanted to do Taekwondo, and I wanted to do karate, because that's what I knew. But I went to the school and it said Taekwondo Karate, and it was really a Taekwondo school. They just put karate on there
just
to get
bring people in.
Like they put MMA on stuff now.
Everything now.
On everything. And they drove me 3 times a week for years and years and years, an hour and a half each way, and then waited in the car for an hour to 2 hours while I trained, or in the gym.
That's awesome, man.
And I owe my happiness to that. And I think of that, I might, if I'm a dad one day, are you your father?
Yeah, I have an 11-month-old son.
Yeah, wow, congrats.
Yeah. Are you a father?
No, my wife is 30, so she's younger than me.
Let's get going.
Yeah, I know.
Man.
It'll be in the next year or two. But I think of that, and I think you talk about the fork in your life when you retire. Fuck, if they didn't do that, like, who am I? What am I doing? And if people like my stuff, it's like my mom and dad made me. Like, what the fuck would I be doing if I didn't go take that?
It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Jim, what do you got, brother?
Since Bellator 170 just happened, I wanted to throw it up on the screen, see if you guys had any thoughts on the fights.
There's a few that stick out to me. Shout out to my boy Jack May getting it done in 41 seconds.
Yeah,
He's a longtime training partner. Shinzo Machida, he's always fun to watch.
Yep.
That Kevin Casey fight, training partner of mine. Let's just get to the main card here. The Howard Gracie versus that Cotto. Yeah. One of the worst fights I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that's the only problem I have with Bellator is, and I know Scott Coker listens, Scott, don't kill me, but to put Howard Gracie, who hasn't fought in I don't know how long, and you put him against this Cotto guy.
Who's actually like blowing people's minds, Cotto. He has been.
Yeah. He's been a kind of fun guy to watch, and you would think he would go in there kind of balls to the wall and just put on Howard Gracie, who hasn't fought in forever. But I mean, it was it made Arlovsky in my fight look like fucking Travis Brown Arlovsky. I mean,
it
was awful.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I don't think any fight is awful ever. I really don't ever. No fight
You're
of any kind.
You're so much nicer than me.
I'm dead fucking serious.
Bullshit.
I am 100% serious. So there was a fight. We commentated TKO for Fight Pass, Ramdeen and I. And there was a fight in the co-main or the main of TKO 36 that we did. And the two guys circled around. And, the one just wouldn't engage. And the other one was up on points. And it was, they circled in this space. And these two other guys who've done some commentary came up to us after, and they're like, we were wondering what you guys were talking about in that, man. That fight was shitty. And if you listen to our commentary, we were so curious about how and why these guys, their hesitation, what it's like going through their minds, what they're dealing with as they're looking at reading the threats, and they fall into this praying mantis kind of thing where praying mantises circle each other.
It's a dance.
And you fall into that.
You fall into that trance dance.
I thought your fight with Arlovsky was cool, but I love every
You
single.
love fighting.
I really love fighting.
It definitely wasn't cool, but I'll not to interrupt you with Arlovsky and me. There's such a respect.
I thought you won that fight. Did you end up with the decision?
No.
I thought you won it at the time.
For him.
Yeah, I thought you won.
I think 99% of the world did, except for those three judges.
Yeah.
Even Arlovsky said I won. Anyway,
and 6 haters on Twitter.
Yeah. Anyways, but him and I were training partners, and we would go to war, and they were close rounds. He'd win one, I'd win one. So I think there's this fear from both of us, like, damn, he's good. Yeah. And he thought, damn, he's good.
And then he knows me.
Yes, he knows me. So we knew certain things about each other, so it was very hesitant, and there was this dance. Mm-hmm. But with Hollick and Cato, there wasn't a dance. It was like Hollick did the shop shutdown, which for jiu-jitsu is so boring. But when you do an MMA fight, that's to me, that's not the nature of the business.
It's interesting.
Do you get that?
I get it.
From a business standpoint?
I get that perspective 100%.
Because how many times can you go, man, I wonder what's going through their mind mentally. Let's say all 5 of those fights are like that.
Yeah.
There's no way.
But there is a dynamic that is happening no matter what, and they're all different.
And it's called being terrified and not engaging. Correct.
And we'll talk about the emotion of that. We'll talk about the repercussions of it. You're fearing the outcome.
Yes.
You're not fearing even being hit. You're fearing losing.
Correct.
Ellenberger fought Rory McDonald. And going out, Ellenberger, who was it was all aggression. It was all forward motion. Yeah, exactly. His nickname was literally perfect.
The Juggernaut.
That's how he fought.
Yes.
And then going into it, he, and I remember breaking this down years ago, Rory performed retinal jab surgery on him, and he never came in. But my breakdown, I sort of did a thing looking back in time, and I said in the lead up, and I showed all of these quotes that he had said about Roy McDonald, a fruitcake and all this stuff. And I'm like, somewhere in his mind, he just couldn't deal with the possibility of getting knocked out by that fruitcake.
Yeah.
He had raised the stakes in a psychological way that he was unfamiliar with. Now, a fight's already this heavy thing where the outcome, the repercussions, the consequences of the fight, pain, failure, fear, losing a job, getting hurt, all of these things. Now you've added extra stuff. Yes. Now you've been derogatory towards this guy that now all that outcome is worse. And now it makes you hesitant. And so things like that are always there. But this is my thought. So I've had the odd freak out on a Sunday morning, and I watch fights with my friends. I'm having a great time. I always have the same people over, and we're having tequila, and it's really fun. Sunday morning, I wake up, and I don't know why I ever would do this, and I don't do it anymore. And I'll open up any of 2 or 3 websites, and something will say post-fight analysis. And then they'll go, well, it was kind of a lackluster affair, not a lot of finishes, not a lot of action. I'm like, that's not fucking analysis. That's your interpretation of your emotional reaction to watching this fight. And I don't give a fuck what it is. Mm-hmm. Analysis is to discuss what's actually happening. And we were talking off the air about how you start looking at how other people analyze and art and different things. And the wine connoisseur, the sommelier, if a sommelier read somebody say, yeah, I didn't like the wine, it wasn't very tasty, they'd be like, that's not fucking analysis. Tell me what's in the wine. Tell me where it came from. Tell me where the grapes were made. Tell me about its history. Tell me about the region it's in. Tell me about the different notes and flavors and scents. That's what the fuck I want to hear about.
That wine expert would say, you don't know wine.
Exactly.
If that's your fucking critique, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, and if you, as you move into a sommelier of fighting, and that's your perspective, you look and you go, I don't care that you didn't like the fight. It's irrelevant to me. Now, then you get over onto this area, which is business. For me, I love to watch how the human experience of combat evolves in the world and how it's going to, and try to imagine what it'll look like in 5 years.
Oh my God.
That's where it's going, and extrapolate the changes that you see and what they could be capable of. And I love doing that.
So you must have loved the Yair Rodriguez BJ Penn fight.
There's a lot of week after week now. There's these ones where it almost looks like a new technology, who invented the light bulb? There's an argument it was either Tesla or
Edison,
right? There's some debate over who actually did it, and I think I got this from my friend David too. He did not invent the light bulb by constantly making improvements to the candle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in fighting right now. They're not just getting better at boxing or training how to do their stand-up get-ups. They're different. They're a different technology, and that's fucking exciting. And where does that go? So all of that is my interest. And if I ran the world, there would be no rules and no time limits, and we'd see pure combat. Biting, whatever. Because, but
it's not a sport, then, is it? That takes the sport out of it.
Exactly. So, and people are like, you couldn't have biting. Well, you wouldn't have biting as soon as people learned how to put yourself in a position to never get bit. That would evolve the sport. And so if you have no rules, the pure development of the technology of fighting would be around the fact that there are no rules to still keep you safe, because you have to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
So you would develop the skills and the framework to never get bit, to never get hit in the crotch. Now, in the process of that, we'd see a lot of biting of crotches and shit. Like, it would be
someone's
bad.
dick's getting ripped
off. It would
off.
be terrible. Exactly.
You can't have that.
Cocks ripped off.
Can't have that on
Can't
Fox.
have that. Now, so that's my imaginary world where I see the true evolution of the combat of man. But we can't have that, because actually the only way this can take place is if we have a sport.
Correct.
So now, when we correct, sir.
Correct, sir.
So now that that's the case, I have to make, from my dream of being able to analyze this in its pure form, concessions. Those concessions are like, well, okay, you can't bite, you can't tear the guy's dick off. Okay, that's fine.
Are you cool with the cage?
Yeah. It is what it is.
Rogan wants he wanted a football field.
Yeah,
so,
I love that. I love that.
You guys
idea.
are crazy.
No,
you guys are crazy.
But since we did make that cage or ring or room or whatever, now the shape of how fighting will evolve in the context of that thing. And so we get really cool shit. All the fighting on the cage, I love that shit up against the board.
Too.
You know, trying to be inside a guy, coming over the top, bicep control and ripping off hands.
It's a sweet science.
It's beautiful stuff. So that wouldn't exist in a field. So now I'm cool with that. Okay, so we have this. Now you go deeper and you go, okay, but what about the health of the business? Now I have to, in my dream world, fuck the business. Fuck whoever doesn't like
forget
whatever.
The sponsors,
fuck the
forget
boring.
money. Forget ratings.
Yeah, exactly. I just will watch the greatest martial artists in the world do the brilliant art that they do, and I will be here to analyze it for the rest of my life. No, that can't happen. So now we have ratings, we have sponsors, we have structure. And now I accept that. I accept that in my dream of art, which is why I end up liking the UFC, because they made a world in which I can watch the shit I want to watch.
Yes.
So I fundamentally appreciate that. But then you get to, okay, well, the only way this is going to thrive is if we sell pay-per-views. Now, again, that's going to change the martial arts. Now, it matters how Mickey Gall looks or how Sage Northcutt talks. It matters how the audience responds to it. If I had the platform and a couple of years, nobody would ever boo any fight again, because I'd make them see that they shouldn't. But
really?
I know, I would.
So then let me ask you this. So when you see a guy like CM Punk get into the UFC, what was your initial thoughts on that?
My initial thought was, are you fucking kidding me? Because again, we're over here and it's like, I'm watching the beauty of genius, and some guy who is wealthy or famous or any of the things that we value.
In a different.
Yeah. He's got 3 million Twitter followers. Well, fuck, we should put him in the cage. Now the art is being influenced by commerce. I know the reality of life as commerce drives everything, so I have to. At first, I'm just like, this is fucking ridiculous. Then my second thought was, I was a 37-year-old guy who wore eye makeup and tight pants and nail polish and wanted to fight because I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible journey, and I had wins and losses and abject failures and fear and injury and all those things. And I learned from it, and it changed my life, and it's the greatest thing ever. And so then part of me went that way, and I'm like, I feel for this guy. I feel where this guy's coming from. Certainly not his fault. He wants. If it were me, I would have just said, I don't know, man, let's not do it in the UFC. Let's do it on one of your Fight Pass shows or something. But it's his choice. It's his life. So that was my next thought. And then after that, then I go back to, well, the guy can't fight. Then I go into analyst mode. it is not possible for him to become, even a half-decent fighter in that time. And then we're going to watch this guy get butchered by somebody half-decent. And then that's what we saw. And all that was done because this dream of seeing this free fighting, this beautiful free fighting, is actually done in a business, in a sport. And that sport, is driven by commerce. And commerce is about selling things.
And stars.
And you can sell that thing. So I have a unwilling...
You're a purist.
Yeah. I have an unwilling relationship with that. But at the same time, I also know it would never exist the way... It doesn't exist ever in any scenario the way I want it. It only exists because Dana White and the Fertittas bought this thing, fell in love with it, and turned it into this thing. So I get the best version that I can get in existence, the best version of what I'd really like to spend my life studying. I get the best version of it because of these guys.
Yeah.
So in the end, which is why I love the UFC, and people, your typical response on Twitter is somebody, well, you're a shill because you said this. I get that. I understand that.
You're a shill.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure of the definition of shill, but it's a funny and great
funny.
word.
Or cuck, yeah.
But cuck, I know the definition of that one. But I'm not, I just fucking love this thing.
Me too.
Yeah, so I fucking love it. So since I have this predisposed love and appreciation for this thing, which only exists because of this thing, I naturally love that thing. So
does it scare you at all? Because the UFC is driven by stars. So the Ronda Rouseys, Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar, but you look at those three and you look at the state of the UFC. Granted, they're coming off their biggest year, but there's no more Ronda Rousey. Right. Let's be real. There's no more Brock Lesnar. You have Conor McGregor, who he's kind of doing his thing. He's flirting with boxing. Let's definitely talk about that with you. I'd love that.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of star power, and they have this $4 billion nut, right? That WME has to make up, which is an entertainment business. So if let's say you're the captain of this ship, how would you kind of grow these stars, and who do you see as the stars? Because Stipe, heavyweight champion of the world, not a star.
Yeah.
He's just not. Chris Weidman, forever middleweight champion, for whatever reason, isn't a star.
Yeah.
And I love these guys.
Me too.
Woodley, not a star. You go through the list, and these guys aren't stars. So who would you kind of focus on and promote? Because, they put all their eggs, and Rogan and I talked about this, they played a crazy game of roulette where they put all their eggs in the Ronda Rousey basket against Amanda Nunes, and then it didn't pay off. Yep. Now no one knows who Amanda Nunes is. Yep. Now she's your champ. Ronda's doing her thing. Who knows?
Yep.
And now you got this champ where she's not a star.
So you're looking at, I'm going to look at it differently. So we're looking at it and we're figuring out the micro. This is the world we live in, and how are we going to make it work? We live in a star-driven world, and we need this to happen, or else Robin won't get his shit that he loves to watch. And me.
Otherwise, you're not going to have a job because there's going to be no UFC.
And not job aside, if the thing that you love is there and requires this, it's not, you need it, right? My approach isn't the micro and the figuring out how to do that. How am I going to promote this person? How am I going to drive this? I'm going to fucking change the whole thing. I'm going to say it's not about that. It's about educating the audience and making them fall in love with the combat itself, not the fighters. And I know that sounds very...
It's more about the league instead of the fighters?
No, we're going to fall in love with the combat and the fighters' fighting skills. So Stipe Miocic, you will be obsessed with him because he is the best.
History's shown, though, that never works.
But has anybody really made the effort to make you fall in love with their act of fighting each other instead of the things they say in the way they look?
Boxing tries to... Why isn't kickboxing bigger? Why isn't Gloria K1 bigger? Because we didn't know the star. They never had this huge crossover star to get the average viewer to tune in. Because there's so much content. You're competing with the NFL, NBA, MLB, everything.
Every movie.
And so we need to know, we need to be invested in these fighters. Because if you don't tell their story, it's just another fight. Just like Access, why isn't Access TV, why don't they have 7 million or 2 million viewers? Because we don't know, no one told their stories.
Yeah.
There has to be a storytelling element.
I know.
And that's what makes the stars,
Yeah.
And I agree. As a purist, you're like, no, give me the best fights possible. I need the best matchups, best fights possible, which is why I love Cerrone, Masvidal.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we're not going to see that. You're not going to see 1 versus 2. You're not going to see 1 versus 3. You're going to see, a more marketable guy. That's a reason why Conor McGregor can jump around different weight classes. They're even talking about a fight at 170.
But I am not at 170, it's insane. I am not a an analyst of their personalities or their star power, although I feel it. Chael is fucking just a star. I don't know why. He just is. Yeah. But I am an analyst of the martial arts, and Conor McGregor's a fucking genius.
Brilliant.
So that's the ideal scenario. Britney Spears was beautiful, and you could make it work, but she wasn't the best singer or dancer.
Yeah.
And that model. So I came over from the music business. And, we're going on 10 years ago now when I was training to fight and starting to
Because the most talented person in music, correct me if I'm wrong, the most talented person in music vocally isn't always the biggest star.
No.
Same in the UFC. Yeah. But when you get someone special like Conor, who happens to be the most talented,
when it's both,
and he has the star power, now you have you have a once in a generation fight.
100%, and it is when you can do both. So if you look at how the music business evolved, and you can put this over to any number of artistic things. The people would go out into the world and they would find the best musician. And they would facilitate a scenario in which they could create with the best recording person, put the record out, and then try to get it out into the world. Then slowly and over time, the producers and the business people were like, I don't want to be reliant on this person's talent. I want to just go out and control the situation. I can control the situation if we manufacture stars. We'll just get songs and we'll get... And that is why music sucks, right? Because it's not driven by the art itself. And this is my fearful direction that's where fighting goes this scenario.
Are you worried that the UFC is going to turn into Nickelback?
Exactly.
That's a Canadian reference
for you,
That is a
Canadian reference for me. Now Nickelback did write some catchy tunes.
They killed it. Tour-wise, they killed it.
They did.
But no one respects those guys.
I know.
I actually bought their album.
Yeah.
I really did.
My friend Ralph James, who used to book my band, he books them all over the world. And
they're killing
it. It made them all rich.
Sure.
But people wanted bread. Yeah. People wanted white bread, and they're like, fucking, we got loaves of white bread for all of y'all.
Yes, all of y'all.
Yeah. But the fighting is going that way, and it is scary to somebody who's a purist because Soulja Boy is going to fight Chris Brown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Soulja Boy is going to fucking fight Chris Brown.
And people ask me to break that fight down.
I'm sure I'll analyze it after, but I'll...
How dare you? I won't.
But I will be honest about it. It's garbage.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But famous people... So once upon a time, we would watch a cooking show. Mm-hmm. And my wife watches them. I know lots of people watch them. Or shows where people flip houses or anything. Now you only want to watch famous people cooking or famous people flipping houses. And once you got famous people fighting, because, I could be wrong. Soulja Boy might have been, I don't know what his real name is. But he might have been boxing his whole life. I don't know.
He hasn't. He's gonna be terrible, sir.
Okay,
yeah. He's gonna be fucking awful.
But this is the thing. But this is the road you go down when the concern is stars and marketing over greatness. This is the inevitable road that we go down. And when I look at it, so I really believe that we all have the ability to influence everything. You have the ability to influence people's day around you. When you are really, really nice to a cab driver and he gets out of that cab, you get out of that cab, the next person comes in, he's nice to them. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You influence the whole world around you. But you can't just change something like this. That bothers me. My job, since it's the way I see it, since the world is currently the world of fighting is currently 85% Twitter beefs and talking about what they said. Open up a website and look at it. So-and-so said this. Article about what they said. So-and-so. Who gives a fuck what these guys said?
Yeah.
They're fighters. They're creating combat. So my job is to swing that pendulum hard the other way. Denounce that stuff. Say it's terrible, that we shouldn't have it. I know that's not true, but if I can slide that 85-15 over to 78-22 by saying don't fucking watch people's things where all they do is interview 7 people about the last Twitter beef. Don't go to websites where every article is about what they said. A lot of people cover, and I don't mean to be critical of MMA journalism, although most of it's absolute fucking garbage, right?
Yes.
Most of it is TMZ kind of in the world of fighting, and they carve out their little niche. And I know there's exceptions. Chuck Mindenhall writes brilliant articles. Luke Thomas does really neat stuff. There's good exceptions. But a lot of it is crap. And my job, if I say don't do that, it's not going to really happen, but it might swing it a couple %. I can influence it a few % by saying fuck stars, fuck how you market people, fuck where you spend your advertising dollars. Let's not even talk about that. It's that same thing between controllables and non-controllables. We can't control any of this. And questions will come up, and they're absolutely respect people's desire to have any perspective that they want. But questions will come up about who deserves a title shot. I don't give a fuck. I just want to see the fights. And
you want to see 1 versus 2.
Yeah.
You want to see champion versus number 1 contender.
And there's
every time.
It's a non-controllable. Our conversation about who gets the title shot is a 100%
it doesn't matter because unless you're Dana White or Ari Emanuel, what you think doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But with your being an expert in the field, your opinion matters to a lot of people who don't know. So to that argument, you could say, I want to see the number 1 contender versus the champion because that's the best fight to make. And then Cody Garbrandt goes, well, I'm ranked number 6 or 7 in the world. I can beat the number 1 guy because in that top 10, a lot of it's about matchup and style-wise.
It is. And at this point now, so even top 10, so what is the rankings? A whole bunch of these people we just called tomato cans.
That's a whole nother can of worms to open. So.
A whole bunch of people we just called tomato cans that 80%. As I said, there are great exceptions, good journalists who really fucking love this stuff and love to have that perspective.
Few and far between.
Yeah, there's a large percentage of tomato cans. Those guys decide what the top 10 is.
It's crazy, isn't
Those guys.
Isn't it crazy?
So then,
I call them the Cheeto fingers.
Yeah, love it. So then, and right now, there's people mashing the keyboard right now, and rightly so. We just insulted people. You know what I mean? I get it. But those guys, now we said that their insight isn't from a position of real analysis, but then we empowered them to make a list, and then we treat that list as if it matters.
We didn't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We didn't. You and I didn't. I didn't do any of that.
You didn't do none of that.
Me and Rogan will bring those ratings up and just mock them nonstop.
Yeah.
We'll go, well, that guy beat that guy. How can you have that guy right there?
Yeah.
And it's just...
But now, and right there is where I do understand this mechanism, because that's fun and it creates debate.
I agree.
And it creates conversation. So I've just answered my own question and I've just completely gone back on my thought, which I like doing.
Me
like
too.
to be
I'm
wrong.
open-minded.
I like to be wrong. I like to be proved wrong. I like to be shown that I'm wrong, because this exciting new idea pops up and you're like, holy shit, I thought that, but that's not true. Now you got to go down this other thing. But as soon as you said, I pictured you and Rogan sitting around laughing.
Oh, no, hell no, this.
And now all of a sudden I see it. People who are passionate about fighting, we've just given them another tool to go in and have a conversation.
But that's also sports. Like you look at college football and the NFL, there's rankings because you want to know where people stack up, and you need some sort of order. Now, those people voting on that order is the issue. But you do, I agree, you need a ranking system.
Yeah. And the debate that again, so now we don't like that those people are necessarily empowered to make that choice, but because they were, now we get the fun of laughing about
That's
it.
true.
So in the end, is there good? Are these good things or bad things? And the truth is, there's a philosophy that you can take that there's no such thing as either. It's a thing, and how you go with it is what you go with it. We've just provided entertainment out of the fact that these guys made that list. We laugh at it, we have fun with it, we argue over it. So I fucking get that all of a sudden. I told you, you get a different perspective by hanging out with somebody, and I just got one.
I think what's huge too, and I think it's what makes you a great analyst and one of the gurus of the sport, is you're open-minded. I think it's so vital when someone's narrow-minded or it's their way or the highway. It's like, maybe, but I can bring a guy over here who's going to make some great points, man. But if you're not even willing to entertain those thoughts and ideas, you're never going to grow. It's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
In fact, it's a gift to be wrong.
Yep.
I didn't think there was any way. And a lot of my decision will be based on the evidence that I can see, because I don't know that anything else is really all that valuable. Well, my gut feeling. Well, if your gut feeling is your way of saying based on certain evidence that I got, but you asked me, Cody Garbrandt and Dominic Cruz, I'm like, no, he's not going to beat Dominic Cruz. He's not evolved enough. He's not on the level. And why? Then you would say, well, why do you see that? I'm like, well, look at these fights. He's super aggressive here. The footwork is good against Almeida. That is beautiful. Yeah, no, that's cool. But you can't fight like that against Dom because he's going to draw you in. So now I'm taking only what I've seen and trying to put a scenario where I have all this data on Dominic Cruz and just this limited data on this guy. And in the best analysis I can give with the limited data I have, that's
all you can do. I said the same thing. I said, I think Cody Garbrandt will be champ. Not yet. I think right now he didn't have the experience, he didn't have the footwork to keep up with a guy like Dominic Cruz.
And you were wrong.
And Cody Garbrandt's literally my favorite fighter in that division. I love the guy. We just talked the other day.
And you were wrong.
I was 100% wrong.
Me too.
When he won, I told him, brother, I just want you to know, I thought you were going to be champ. I didn't think it was going to be this soon. And I didn't think you'd outclass one of the pound-for-pound greatest of all time.
And Dominic Cruz.
But there's nothing wrong with being wrong.
It's fucking great.
With the information I had at the time and this huge database on Dominic Cruz that I had.
You're like, get serious.
I'm like, okay, here.
He's not ready.
No, he's not ready.
He's fucking ready.
There's nothing wrong with that. Because he went, I am ready.
He is ready.
And that's why I want this fight. Check this out.
I've never been happier to be so blatantly wrong because that night, you watch it. And you're like, holy fuck.
Greatness.
Because, greatness. And you're watching, again, that he's another technology now. You needed new technology to beat Dominic Cruz. You needed new...
Because the old technology didn't work.
It's not going to work. It never worked. And he was ready to beat it all the time.
Everyone.
Now, there's a lot of exciting things that suddenly happen. You being wrong opens up this whole new world of truth for you to examine. Holy fuck, he is that good. How good is he? And later, people who are from Alpha Male were like, dude, if you asked me, I would have told you. Like, because I didn't see that ability to push and pull, to draw. And he'd never shown it. It didn't exist.
In training, though, and the Alpha Male guys, I'm friends with, Lance Palmer, one of my favorite fighters. Can't wait till he gets to the UFC. I think he's the next champ. He gives so many people problems. I was talking to him, he goes, yeah, we knew it, man. Because in training, I know guys in training who absolutely dominate the best of the best. But when the lights turn on, they're good. They're top 10 guys, but they're not number one.
Yeah.
So when I hear training, that doesn't do a lot for me because I've been there. I've seen guys who it just doesn't correlate to that extent.
To the moment.
When I hear that, I'm like, that's fine. But just going based off his body of work so far, I didn't think he was going to win.
Me neither.
And I was wrong.
I was thrilled to be wrong. And
another time where I was happy I was wrong is I said Conor McGregor's going to have the fight of his life against Eddie Alvarez. Matchup-wise, it is going to be a nightmare for him because Eddie Alvarez, he's tough to finish. He's a dog. He gets in your face. I'm worried about the takedown.
You know what that is?
Dude, I watched that fight. I did a live fight companion in Palm Beach, Florida with Brian Callen after one of our live Fight in the Kids shows. And when he came out, I was so nervous because I want the best for Conor. I think the world needs a guy like him. We do. We need those heroes that you can look at. We need those mystical
and villains
creatures.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We
because
need
the people who hate him, they're valuable.
Yes.
It's important
They're
going
to tune in.
Yeah.
And so when he walked in and when he dismantled Eddie Alvarez, I was speechless. I'm a fucking chatty Cathy. And had a mic in my hand, I went, I don't know what to say because he literally walked through Eddie Alvarez like he was an amateur.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what to
And
tell
that's
you.
Eddie Alvarez. You know what I mean?
World
That's
champion
not
Eddie
me.
Alvarez, highest
It's not
level.
One of us.
No.
It's like, this is fucking Eddie Alvarez.
And he dismantled him, and I went, I don't know what to tell you guys. What you're witnessing is greatness. You're
100%.
witnessing a once in a
100%.
lifetime,
100%.
and once in a world generation fighter.
So here's where that gets scary. Is the next generation now has him to be able to try to be their starting point.
Exactly.
And that was one of the other things. I want to talk about that. One of the other things about Garbrandt being so fucking good, he's not the only one that good. There's a whole world of guys now that good. That new technology is there. But also, Dom, who's one of my favorite athletes and minds, he has now been presented with something he can go and try to study him, try to go beyond.
Can he? Or does age play a factor? Because he has so many miles on him.
Possibly.
That's what's scary.
My answer would be, I don't know, maybe he can't, except for what the fuck has he ever not been able to do? It's like, so my knee's fucked, you come back, train, again it happens. Nobody comes back from two of those. Then come back and then be amazing. Then while he's down, you can't run around. And he moves. That's what he does. And now he's limited. He's not able to move. Like, that's like not being a bird with a wing that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Especially
so what
for
does
his
he
style.
do? He studies shit.
He
goes to 30,000 feet and analyzes it. Can't be moving, so he can't be in it in the 3 dimensions of combat. So he goes out to 30,000 feet and studies combat. Then he's got a job on a desk. And I remember the first couple of times, I'm such a huge fan of him. So I'm watching him. I'm like, he's kind of wooden, you know? It's kind of not bad, I guess. And then like 4 months later, he's fucking awesome.
He's brilliant.
He gets brilliant at that too. So tell me what he's ever not been able to do. So this is a huge test.
Now you're talking about a lot of those things you're talking about are all, and I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
he can do anything he puts his mind to. However, you're dealing with a young, game-bred fighter in Cody Garbrandt who's also getting better.
That's it.
And he's young, doesn't have the miles. Then you're dealing with Dominic Cruz, who, man, how long's he been doing it?
Yeah.
And at some point, the physical body goes, we get it what you want to do, but father time isn't going to allow it.
Yeah, well, I think Dominic Cruz, his fork is either all the fuck in, I'm going to be greater, I'm going to be the greatest, I understand what this was, I understand what he is, I understand what he's going to be, and I'm fucking going for it. Or you analyze that. What's that going to cost me? How much time will I get to spend with friends, girls, family? What's it going to? I'm going to not be able to work on TV as much. I'm not. What's the cost of that? Analyze it. Look at the cost. How bad do I want it? I'm fucking doing it.
See,
or look at that and say, too much. Fuck it. I'm retired.
See, I don't think you can say too much. I'm retired. I think if he can't be the absolute number one guy in the world, he's gonna go, fuck this. I'm not doing it, because his ego. And I think I've told this story maybe on a fight campaign on the Fighter and the Kid, but him and I were doing a Jason Ellis goat kart race.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you guys can take practice laps before all the fans come in, and it's a celebrity go kart race. It's like Mario Kart with humans. Yeah. So dangerous. Yeah. And it's in this it's so dangerous. Yeah. And Keith Jardine, myself, Dominic Cruz were all in the same heat. And I was like, all right, I'll do like a lap and just test it out. It's not that serious. Well, Dom was there way before me, probably for 40 minutes doing it, getting damn good at it. And before we go on, he's in the back corner talking to himself, going, they don't want you to win. They don't want you to win this fucking thing. You can do this.
I love it.
Oh my God, I'm nothing like him.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck if I win this thing. Like I'm not that competitive guy.
Yeah.
Like I want to win. I'm gonna do my best, but I mean, it's not going to ruin my day if I lose. Yeah. This dude dying to win. I think he won. I mean, I think he won. He's dying to win. Yeah. He's like Toad, and I was King Koopa in that bitch. Yeah. Like, I was so slow, and he's little Toad just fucking going around. But I was like, there's a 1%.
That's exactly
right. That's a 1%. That's exactly like, everything he does, if he can't be number one, he's not going to do it.
Yeah. And I think, so... Now he has an incredibly analytical mind, so I think and probably incredibly self-aware, so he knows that. So he's going to lay out the work, what needs to be improved, what needs to be built, or maybe what he believes he needs to be, and reverse engineer it back to the amount of work, amount of effort, amount of drive, and then the percentage that if he does everything, the likelihood of winning. And if that percentage is 65, he's going for it.
But now to your point where you're this purist, you want to see the best martial arts possible, and WME buys the UFC. What's Cody Garbrandt doing right now? Training. Yeah. He's in the gym, getting better, and he already beat Dominic Cruz. What's Dominic Cruz doing? Yeah, he's working for UFC tonight. Yeah, he's on in front of the camera.
And if he analyzes
so there's a give and take here, because you see guys who are on that desk, and you have to fly in, that you're away from your gym, you're away from your training camp and all that. Yeah. Cody Garbrandt's not doing that. No. Conor McGregor's not doing that.
Conor McGregor canceled Triple X because he had to go and do it at all costs.
And another huge movie role in Predator, Game of Thrones. He's had all these opportunities.
Yeah. And he said, fuck it, I have to go.
He's not doing it. You know why? He's the best fighter in the world. Yeah. But you see these guys 100%. Who, it's a as a purist, you're like, no one should be doing anything. Yeah, when I saw UFC tweet, hey, how about Cody Garbrandt Dancing with the Stars? I just retweeted and put, absolutely not. No. Don't fuck this up. I don't want to see him in a remake of Dumb and Dumber. No. Don't do that. Do not do that.
I do kind of want to see that.
You do, but then I don't know. You know what you're going to get? Yeah. You're going to get a shitty version of Cody Garbrandt.
Exactly. And that's
why my point to Dominic Cruz is he has this opportunity. Yeah. Cody Garbrandt, you could offer that opportunity. He's not going to take it.
But that's why.
Paige Van Zandt.
Yeah. When Dom is self-aware enough that he will analyze all of that, and if the answer isn't, I'm going to quit everything and become the best fighter in the world one more time, then I think he'll probably just say, I don't know, I'm not retired yet, but I'll hang in there, and 6 months from now we'll hear he's retired.
He's a smart enough guy.
And he'll do what he's a fucking smart guy. But that's another thing with fighting, is you can look, if you map that out, you can map out how to do shit. Like in your own
What do you mean
life.
map out?
Map out, what would Dominic Cruz, how does he lay that out? Well, now I want to start an Etsy store. Well, how would I do that? What's the sacrifice? What's the cost going to be? Mm-hmm. What are my chances of success? How will I improve it? If you start thinking like your favorite fighter, your life will get smoother. McGregor is somebody, you said we need a guy like that. I love the fighting is always number one for me. And when that guy fights, when him and Eddie were going to fight, it was just like, literally I could cry. You're just so excited. But I'm interested in the philosophies that you learn about life from the martial arts. You study martial arts long enough, inevitably it will lead to self-study, which will lead to figuring out how to live.
In regards to Conor McGregor too?
McGregor. And so when we're studying Conor McGregor, you study so he's driven, he's obsessed, all those things, it's all great. Lots of people are. When he looks at an issue, he figures out what needs to be accomplished. How can that be done? Oh, it seems like it can't be done. Okay, I can't improve my energy systems in this way for the next fight with Nate Diaz. Why can't I? Okay, it's something systemic. I have to change how I work. Okay, great. I have to change the way I focus. I have to change the way I sleep. I have to change what I eat. I have to change my perspective. And he'll find a plateau where that can't be accomplished, and he will change something systemically in his thinking so it can be accomplished. And that's fucking mind-blowing. And the fact that some people hate him is really interesting to me.
It's good.
It's very good. But when I see somebody when you see, what you're seeing is self-actualization. You're seeing somebody becoming their potentialities. That's what McGregor is. And when you see that, we have two very distinct reactions you can have. And one is, he's just a person. That means I could do that. That means most of the shit in my life is shit I could control and or change or alter or improve or take blame for. You watch him take the blame for his failure and change it. Wow, that's exciting. That means I could do all kinds of shit.
It's inspiring for a lot of people.
Or you can look at it. And to admit that is to admit that your life is your own responsibility.
Correct.
And many people don't want to do that. And when they don't, they repel against self-actualization.
And spew out hate, and that's where you get the trolls and the negativity on Twitter. Like whenever I see negativity on Instagram or Twitter, it never really bothers me because it's their own insecurities and they're going through something. It's like, God damn, you need a hug, man.
I know, and I feel for people. I really genuinely do now. You can't engage it because it's not. You
can never engage it. You don't want to add fuel to it. Yeah.
It's also not personal. They really don't hate you.
No.
There's some other thing going on. And even this conversation would get a response. Somebody would say, no, it's because Ronda was a bitch.
Yeah.
It's like, we all watched exactly the same thing. You know, if you ask somebody to say, go into a forest and find the ugliest tree you can find, or 50 trees, and you tell somebody else to go find the most beautiful tree they can find, we may find the same fucking tree.
Yeah.
It's just a tree.
Yeah.
But our perspective of the thing is what colors us. So Ronda isn't a bitch. Or Conor McGregor isn't a pompous ass to this percentage of people. He's a brilliant athlete. To you, he is. So you should examine your perspective. Why do I see things that way? Well, it's because he said these things. It's not because he said those things. You're reacting to it. Again, non-controllable, what Conor McGregor says. Controllable is how you react to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it's their own personal experiences that maybe it triggers something in him in their in their previous experiences that just go, fuck, I don't like that guy, man. You know, it's something with their own doing where they lash out.
And a lot of it may not be their fault. You know, you were what's the word when you domesticated? Yeah. We all get domesticated exactly like dogs and cats. When you're a kid, if you do something great, your parents say, you're a good boy or you're a good girl. Here's a treat. When you do something bad, you get yelled at and told it's bad. Those things are shaped in you. And then over life, you think this is good and this is bad because you were trained that way. That may not be true. So your structure of how you see good and bad in yourself, if you're singing when you're a little kid and your mother loves your voice. I got this theory from a book called The Four Agreements that a friend of mine, a psychology professor, Tracy, gave me. If you're singing when you're a kid and your mother loves your voice, but she's exhausted at the end of the day, she's working 2 jobs and you're singing and she's tired, she has a headache and she goes, stop singing, you have a fucking terrible voice. You literally may not sing again.
Yeah.
And you may believe that you have a terrible voice.
Even though you're a good singer.
Even though you're a good singer. And so people carry shit like that around with them. And when they deny that, they'll say, no, it's because McGregor's... It isn't. Your reaction to him is shaped by your life experience. Which is why when Tyron Woodley said fighting is racist... You don't know what the fuck Tyron Woodley's been through in his life. His perspective may literally, if you experienced his perspective and watched his movie with him in it.
You know where he's from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd look at it.
A lot of racism.
Yeah. And you'd be like, yeah, fucking right, it's racist because your life experience would say that. So you can never judge Tyron Woodley's like, oh man, he says this. Tyron Woodley's life experience is his own. You know, it's his own. And he is talking from a first person perspective about his life.
And to him, maybe he does feel that he's mistreated. Yeah. To him, and everyone goes, how can you be mistreated? And he's like, well, because of this, I was treated this way when I was a kid. I was treated this way when I worked at this establishment. I was treated this way when I wrestled at Missouri.
Exactly.
The same things happened in the UFC. Mm-hmm. To me, it's not fair. And then when he went on First Take and said that, a lot of people go, oh my God, this guy. To me, I go, no matter whether you agree with it or not, I like that because that's real shit. I like that because that's how you feel. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if I don't agree with you, at least it's real. go ahead and talk the fake stuff about Wonder Boy, and then Wonder Boy's going to say something bad about you. Do that. I don't give a shit about that. What I care about is how you really feel.
Yeah.
That's what people gravitate towards.
You're right.
The realness.
So we go back to that star conversation, which I'm trying to swing it and make it not about that, despite the fact that I have to admit that there are realities.
Which I don't, and to me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but to me, that the way the business works, I didn't design that.
No.
People get mad at me because I go, and Rogan and I talked about this, I go, it's built off stars. You have to have a star or the business will die. You have to have stars. I didn't create that.
No.
I have nothing to do with that.
No.
That's the model that they decide to aim for.
Exactly.
And that's the model that they're really heavily influencing now. Now they're owned by entertainment
company. Conglomerate. Yeah.
Yes.
And so my efforts are to make that different. And with my tiny bit of influence, which will one day be a little more, which if it influences Brian Stan, which if it influences, John Anik, and people start thinking, maybe it changes, maybe it doesn't. But to me, the idea of make a star or promote a star, I truly believe in a world where everybody says the thing you got to say. And now in fighting for a long time, it was, I want to thank my team. I want to thank God,
sponsors.
My sponsors. I had a great training camp and blah, blah, blah. That is, in hockey in Canada, every single hockey player talks exactly the same.
Same in NBA, same in NFL, which I don't think is good.
No, it's terrible. So, and in a world where everyone's the same, it's called commoditization. It's all exactly the same, so it's interchangeable. You can't, that is, by definition, nobody will be standing out. So, like this guy,
that's why we love Nick and Nate Diaz.
Authentic.
That's why they're so big.
Exactly. They're authentic. Tyron Woodley right now, even if you don't like the way he's being fucking authentic. When people are themselves, when people become a better themselves, when people express the things that they actually give a shit about, we'll be way more interested in them.
Which is one of the reasons why Rhonda, I think, became such a big star, because she wasn't the pretty girl who, I'm just in here to do my job, I'm a submitter. She was this cold-hearted, black soul, darkness that was like, I'm going to fuck this girl up.
And
I was like,
want.
well, at least she's being real, because that's her.
Yeah.
At least that's not a gimmick.
Yeah.
And then people saw, you saw this kind of, because the UFC is just like the NFL, just like the NBA, it's a copycat league. Then people saw, well, Conor McGregor's making all this money. Ronda Rousey's making all this money doing that. And then we see Ben Rothwell, who's been fighting since the dinosaurs, get on the mic. And now he's doing this weird WWE gimmick. And I'm like, that's not you, man.
No.
And then when you see guys trying to do it and the way they're getting fights now, and you see them lashing on Twitter, I'm like, oh no. If it's not in your DNA, if it's not in your personality, don't do it. But the UFC's going, well, this is what we like.
What they may not be getting, and the people doing it aren't getting, is the whole point of why people stand out. Like, innovation is always better than imitation. Mm-hmm. Innovation is everything. That's why we live in the world that we live in. And if you're around a whole bunch of imitation and you innovate, you're different. You mentioned that I do my thing differently. I dreamed of commentating fighting, and I never fucking just wanted my chance to say knockout power in both hands.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never wanted my chance to say.
You didn't want to get up and go, virtually identical.
Dish out some good ground and pound. I never wanted to say. In fact, one of the earliest things as a big fan of Joe's was when I was first commentating, I had to consciously not do Roganisms because I heard them and I loved them.
I know, you have to be careful.
Yeah, and I loved them. And I love his voice and I love his enthusiasm. And I grew, as I'm falling in love with fighting, this is the guy that I'm hearing, right? And so I had to consciously make an effort to not do that. So whatever it is I'm doing might suck right now, but one day it will at least be my own.
Yeah, at least you own it. At least it's your own.
Yeah.
Same thing with stand-up.
Yeah.
Same thing with stand-up. Same thing with breaking down fights. I don't listen to a lot of other shows. Like I said, if I want to get really into a fight, I'll watch your breakdowns on the Fight Network on YouTube. And then as far as comedians, I stop listening to all of them because I'll find myself, they'll have a concept and then it'll hit me and I'm like, where did I get that?
Yeah.
And it's because you're influenced by your surroundings. So I just cut out all of it.
I don't watch any analysis. I don't almost consume any MMA media right now, but I got a lot of at first I was like, well, how am I going to stay in awareness? But then you start reading about other things and you start studying other things. You start getting philosophy and concepts opening up. And then you draw those ideas back to your comedy or back to what you do. And the weird thing, man, I don't understand it. So I'm old.
How old are you?
47.
Damn, you look young as fuck.
Thanks, man.
Damn, you and Callan killing the game.
Yeah. My first fight, I was a week before I was 39.
Damn, good for you.
Yeah, I lost, but it was still pretty awesome.
Was it a decision?
Yeah. No, I got finished
submitted?
in the second round.
Gotcha.
But I got dropped in the first 20 seconds, and I really fought through it and fought hard. Won the round and was winning the other one. That moment, the failure. Yeah, I learned a lot. And in that one moment, the first shot hit me, and I woke up. I basically was woken up from sleeping on the couch when my knee hit something, and I was like, what's it? And then I heard a crowd cheering, and I felt more punches, and I realized, fuck, okay, got dropped. And it happened really fast, and suddenly I snapped right into it. You got dropped, everyone's cheering, you're not fucking going down here. And I fought back hard for 7 minutes. So,
you learned so much from that.
Yeah, I did. And I've had other failures where, like Chael, my brain sold me out in one way, and your body shuts down. But other ones where you had great moments. So you learned a lot from that. But what was I talking about? It did take a lot of head trauma. There was something about... so I'm old, and so I know who the Beatles are. Yeah. And a lot of people watching right now who are under 20 literally may not know who the Beatles are. But if you go on Google and you look up the Beatles when they first came out, they all had bowl cuts and they all wore suits, and they were kind of goofy and fun, and they fucking became the biggest thing in the world. Why did they become the biggest thing in the world? Because they were authentic, they were innovative, and they were different.
At the time,
Yep.
yeah.
And then the next 50 bands all came out with bowl cuts, suits, and acting like the monkeys. That all happened. You look in those 3-year period, that's what bands do.
Yep.
How you look at something being successful and awesome because it's different and innovative, and your answer to that is be exactly that, I don't get it. Your reaction to this thing isn't the suits and the haircuts. It's so different and unique and authentic. So don't copy it. Go be different and unique and authentic.
Well, and that's what makes stars in the UFC. Like, the reason why Conor's so dynamic and so successful is because he's different. The fighters he's fighting have never seen that style, that distance, the quickness, the kicks, the left hand, all the movement he's doing, the build up, the pressure he deals with. They're like, what is going on there? And we saw a little bit of that. And there's these pioneers who changed the game. And to your point, they change it, then people download that, and then they get better. They get better. Yeah. Remember when Lyoto Machida first hit the scene? It was like, how is someone going to beat this guy? Yeah. What the fuck? We've never seen this this distance, this southpaw, this karate, taekwondo movement. We don't know what to do. And then someone figures out what to do.
And now they all do it.
That. Yeah.
Everybody
moves
like that.
And then now it's not that big of a deal. With Wonderboy, same thing. With Wonderboy, it's like, man, what are they going to do? His punches, this, and this. And then they download that. And you get these dynamic stars with Ronda. Man, how are we going to deal with this? There's submissions. Yeah. Someone goes, you punch her straight in the face. Yeah. And then we see people start to mimic that.
Well, when Dana first brought me in, he said, the first job I want you to do is explain to me how, if there's a way Holly Holm could possibly win this fight. And I said, fuck, dude, she's going to win the fight. He goes, okay, do that breakdown. The breakdown was her and her coaches. Her first couple of fights, people were like, well, she wasn't that good. She wasn't fighting those girls. She was dress rehearsing Ronda. Everything was moving back, striking, hooking off to the side. And if somebody didn't chase you, throw a head kick or a body kick. And if they did chase you, intercept them and move off. It was 2 long dress rehearsals for Ronda. And that was when I first really introduced, look, we're dealing with range. Like, we're dealing with the issue of, and I made a little series of circles. So Ronda was in the middle, and then there was a one range 1, 2, 3, and 4. And
like
this
a jawbreaker.
Yeah,
like an inside of a jawbreaker.
And this one was hot, because if you're there with Ronda, she kills you. And out there, it gets cooler. And I show Alex Davis, and I did a few minute piece, but they only aired the 1 minute. So it went way more into, it was early, and they were figuring out what I did and how I did it. And, and Dana was watching them and giving me feedback. And it was a really exciting time to be doing that. And so I was like, I showed Alex Davis, safe out here. And then the second, and you saw those circles. And the second it ran, boom, in here, bam, dead. But out here, Ronda literally has 0 weapons. 0. So the key, great, I'll stay out here and smash you. And Ronda wants to get there. So, but she keeps getting there. Why does she keep getting? All we have to do is, if I move a foot towards you and you move a foot back, the same gap happens. Yeah. Same space is there.
It's a distance control thing.
Yeah, if I move towards you really fast in 5 steps and you move back really fast in 5 steps, it's the same range. Better yet, I move towards you 5 steps, you move back 2 and around 3. And now I'm over here and you're hitting me. Yep. And I'm coming back towards you and you're over there. It's once you look at it in the simplicity of what it really is. And fighting, for me, goes through, and I was talking to Greg Jackson recently, and I loved the way he put it. He was like, sometimes fighting is really small, and sometimes it's really big. And I know exactly what he means. It's like sometimes...
In regards to what?
Like, sometimes it is as simple as, holy fuck, all we got to do is change the angle so Ronda doesn't get close enough to do all of her tools, and change the angle so that not only is she far away, but she needs to move this way. That's just big and wide. That's simple. That's a big,
if you
wide
have
spot.
Holly Holm's skill set.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's exactly the big small. The big is that. That's just macro. It's just the thing you got to do. Back off and keep the space, kicker in the head. The micro is how do we do it? Why do we do it? How do we learn it? How do we train it? How do we troubleshoot against it? And how do we execute it?
Yes.
That's the micro. And the micro is what makes it interesting. And so breaking down fights like that sometimes is really fun. It's simple. And not everybody understands it at first. There'll be a lot of people like, that's too simple. Well, fuck, I'll give you a complicated one next time.
Yeah, if you want it, man.
I'll give you a complicated one next time.
I'll break it down if you want, yeah.
I looked at the sort of learning and emotional reaction of Robbie Lawler once, and I don't think I broke down a single technique. And a few people were like, that's not a breakdown. I'm like, I'll fucking tell you what a breakdown is first of all.
I'll let you know. Yeah, I'll let you know when the breakdown's coming,
first
bitch.
of all. But second of all, who the fuck said it's supposed to be a technique breakdown? You don't talk about only one aspect of wine. This is this incredible thing. It can be a psychological breakdown. It could be.
Is that what you did? You broke down Robbie Lawler psychologically?
Yeah, kind of a learn.
Because it's a huge X factor for him, especially right now.
Yeah.
Coming off a loss, he's training camps.
There's a moment in the first Johnny Hendricks fight where in round 5 he gets taken down and you see him go.
He's frustrated.
He gave up in the round that he needed that fight.
Yeah.
He gave up, and he knows it.
Yep.
And that's exactly the conversation we were having about Chael. To people who've never got to, because right there, Robbie Lawler got to the 98th percentile in that moment. To people who've never got to the 60th percentile, they're like, well, he's a quitter. There's no negative to this. This is a function of a type of failure that happens as you're asking people to go to the highest level of focus, concentration, understanding, running multiple algorithms in your mind in combat, half naked in front of a fucking million people. That is not a quitter. That's a guy whose CPU got overloaded.
Yes.
So we look at that, and then you look at all the work that he did, and he comes back, and you see him at the beginning of fucking round 5 against Johnny Hendricks. He's a different man. What happened in that time was he truthfully looked at that moment that happened, swore that it would never happen again, but more importantly, because you can easily say next time it'll be different, more importantly, did the work, studied himself, figured out actually what that means, why it would be that way, what you can control, how you can train that, did it, and fucking murdered him in round 5.
In the fight. In the middle, people don't realize the magnitude of that. In the middle of a championship fight, when everything's on the line, to make that mental adjustment.
Switch, and your eyes are full of blood. You can't breathe. Your lungs are burning. Your leg doesn't work because of those leg kicks that's happened. Everything feels labored and weird, and like most human beings can't even exist that way.
Yes.
This guy can not only do that, but change a psychological switch that will change your life. His life to be the champion, the dream of his entire life, his family, money, everything, right fucking now in front of a million people. That to me is fucking that's why fighting. Man. And that shit is why you watch fighting. And whether Robbie Lawler sells, 400,000 pay-per-views next time or 1 million, I don't give a fuck because that moment affected me forever.
Yeah.
And then Condit, round 5, motherfucker, and Rory, round 5, down 3-1, changed him forever. And that kind of shit, you watch that and really understand it, and then tell me this shit isn't an art.
I agree, man. What's up, Doug?
Yeah.
The same thing with Johnny Hendricks. You see him going through this kind of rough transition period right now. And to me, for him, it's all mental. Because he's going through, he's missing weight, and then he's not performing to his fullest capabilities. He had this steakhouse, so he's trying to control that, and he has all these weird X factors. He leaves his old camp, and then now he's going to 85, and I don't know if you saw, he's fighting Hector Lombard now.
And he goes, Halifax? I think it's in Canada.
I think so, and he goes, if I lose this one, I'm retiring. When I hear that, I'm like, God,
he already said that too.
He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
What was Rogan said to you about would you go train at another place? Yeah. Johnny has said, it's cool AKA keeps offering, and, I really appreciate those guys. But, my wife needs me. Sometimes one of our kids, if there's something going on, my wife needs me at home. You're not, that's
not fully in.
If Joe had that conversation with him, he'd have the same conversation he had with you.
And there's nothing, into Johnny's defense, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's the choice. That's the life he wants to live.
I think I don't know Hector Lombard's personal situation or anything like that. But if you ask Hector Lombard, he'd probably go, "Oh, I would call you from fucking San Jose, California. If they asked me to train there."
100%.
My family and friends would find out after I get done with practice that I was in San Jose. That's the difference.
Yes, 100%.
And at this level, it means everything. Yeah. Everyone can kick and punch. Everyone's good at jiu-jitsu. Everyone can wrestle at that level, top 10 level. 100%. Everyone's so good. Yeah. It's what are you willing to sacrifice? How bad do you want it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's okay. Not only is it okay, you're going to make all the choices in your life you want. And there's no law that says you have to do this. In fact, being a great father and a good husband and finding a new thing, that's a fucking killer life. We should all strive for that.
It's more important than beating Hector Lombard. Because remember, Johnny Hendricks was champ. He's had a phenomenal career. Yeah. He goes in the UFC Hall of Fame. You're good, man. Yeah. You beat you beat Hector Lombard. It does nothing for me. Yeah. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You have your wife, you have your kids. I don't even know why he would do it. Yeah.
So if that's true, then you look and you go, I don't know why he would do it. And if the answer is, and it hasn't been so far, but if it is, because I fucking love getting in there and fighting, then cool. You take the fights that are...
Missing weight doesn't
tell
me that. Missing weight, when I see guys miss weight, that's self-sabotage.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Kelvin Gastelum, I'm a big fan of that kid.
I am now.
See that last fight?
I am now. I wasn't before. Shit. I wasn't a believer.
I wasn't either.
I'm not a guy that buys in the hype usually.
No, me neither. In fact, I'm resistant to it. Is Francis Ngannou on this?
On the break? Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that
in
after.
Denver,
because I'm yet to be convinced, but I'm glad.
Me too, man.
But I am very glad to be convinced. But Cody convinced me. I'm going to be a fan of Cody Garbrandt for the rest of my life now. I can't wait to see what he can become. Doesn't mean I didn't like him just because I didn't think he was there. It might be some of the same things.
When we get to the break, and we'll do it right after this. With Francis, I look at his body of work, and that nothing convinces me that he's going to be the next heavyweight champ. Yeah. There's nothing there.
No.
Now fighting Andrei Arlovski, who's a perennial top 10 heavyweight for how many years, and I know what he's capable of, but he's an older guy.
This fight wouldn't convince me necessarily.
Me neither. This still doesn't.
But that's okay because I'll be convinced one day or I won't.
Yeah, or you won't. And it's all good. It's not that I don't like the guy, but...
I do like the guy. In fact, I'd love to see him go out there and be like, holy fuck, yes, a real heavyweight.
Look at the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is the land of fossils right now. Yeah, besides Stipe, you look at it, you're like, oh my God, these guys have been fighting for 15 years.
Imagine
there's no new blood. You got Derek Lewis, you got Francis.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's no new blood.
Yeah. It's true.
So you need guys like that.
You do. I hope he's wicked.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Should we get into the breakdown? Let me go to the bath before we do this breakdown.
Sure. Good times.
I gotta go too.
All righty. The annual pee break. We usually Brian and I do it. You know, every show. I don't have the bladder like most guys. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I
drink a lot of fluids, man.
I drank iced coffee before, and now this.
I've had 6 cups of coffee. I've read a study.
For real, 6 cups?
6 cups. Wow. I usually do about 6 cups before a show.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an addict.
But you're 260 pounds? 250?
240.
So that would be like 3 cups for me.
3 cups for you. I blasted this study out. There was a study that they're seeing how much the body could consume before they almost die, and it's 300
cups.
300 cups.
Oh, fuck, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
it should be good.
You're 1/20th.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
like
straight.
5%.
Yeah, I was like, what? So there's a limit? Man, thanks for that. All right, let's break down this main card. What do you got, Chin? So, I mean, obviously my boy Nate Marquardt, and then that on the undercard, the Santiago and Sterling fight's fun. Nate Marquardt, Sam Alvey is fun. You want to just start with the main card, the 4?
Sure. Yeah,
all right.
Sure. Caceres is interesting. So he's
on and off, and he's hot and cold. I call him icy hot.
He was training a lot. He with what's his name? Just fought BJ. We mentioned earlier.
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez, and fought Yair Rodriguez to a split decision. Right. So BJ was training with Caceres. To get ready for Yair Rodriguez. And Caceres has that kind of open, freewheeling kind of thing, coming at you from different angles and stuff. And apparently BJ was doing great. So I know I've just tangented off onto BJ Penn.
That probably gave BJ confidence.
Yeah.
But obviously Yair's a different animal.
If you go in and you watch only the first 2 minutes of the fight with BJ and Yair Rodriguez, and then turn it off, you're like, BJ's doing pretty good. He was doing the right things.
Was he?
He was. Because we remember it now. What was it? The full 5 minutes and then a few seconds of the next round.
Yes.
From about 2.5 minutes on till the 5, he's in a lot of trouble. But from 0 to 2.5, if you shut it off after that, so you weren't colored by the rest of the fight, you'd be like, oh, BJ's not doing too bad. As the kicks were coming, So on that spinning kick, the heel is coming at my head, right? But as you know, if that kick comes and you put your body into the soft to this, there's nothing off on that. BJ did that a few times because obviously
BJ was blocking it.
Blocking and coming in to take the soft stuff and then get into the body and then push him up against the fence. It's like, we know that's the plan. It just all went south after that.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is, so he trained exactly right in the right circumstances with Alex Caceres to emulate the idea. And they had the plan and Greg knew what to do and BJ was probably executing it in the gym. And then you go get hit a few times or get into that tough zone, and you just become what you were.
There's also the X factor where, oh my God, Rodriguez isn't doing what we thought he was going to do. The stuff you can't control, you have to adapt to it. And I think BJ just didn't have the tools to adapt in the moment, like, to your point, Robbie Lawler did.
Yeah, and what you have to adapt to is a new thing. So you're already doing something somewhat new to you, a modern approach to how you're going to fight this. And now the adaptation that's required is also modern. But what you do is default back to your old thinking.
Yeah.
So suddenly, now you're BJ Penn of 5 years ago, and now you're fucked.
The same thing happens with if you have a elite wrestler. When they get punched, they get wobbled. They go to their grassroots, they go to their ground roots, and they grapple.
Yes.
And if you have a striker, and this is where they get in a lot of trouble, when they get hit, their grassroots
come back
is to come back and punch back.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's trouble.
Yeah,
so I think with BJ, he got hit, and he went, "Oh, I'm gonna do what BJ does," which is it with. And I know we're breaking down BJ.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, that really was fascinating.
True. It was heartbreaking, too.
Yeah, it was. It was for me, too.
BJ's one of my favorite people on this earth.
I've never met him personally. I always
you would love him.
Every time we're talking about him on Fight Network, I'm always like, BJ, come up to Toronto. I'll take you out for the best tacos I've ever had.
Yeah, I would get my fat ass up there.
For
Did you say tacos?
Yeah. But so Jason Knight submitted a lot of guys. Coming up, he took tough fights.
He has a lot of hype on him, too.
Yeah, he took tough fights. And I think that is something to me that now you see guys are going to have to do. So I'm going to go way off on a tangent. But
no, let's do it.
This is, again, the other thing. Breaking down fights. On some of these, we are going to talk about in detail about the things, but on some of them, it's like, do I really say this guy, if he uses a triple jab and uses head movement, he's got, in some ways that I hear people do it, and they can do what they like, and if you enjoy it, that's great.
In that.
But some people will literally just make a list of a whole bunch of things and say who's better at what. So this guy's got better wrestling, but not as good striking. This guy slips punches really well, but this guy has good distance management. This guy's got good volume. I don't use that term either. That's just a bullshit term. Volume means a big amount of things. So we can, if somebody says, like I made the one knockout power in both hands, that's Jimmy Smith. That's a Jimmy Smithism. Yeah. If you want to use Jimmy Smith's lingo, by all means go use it, but it's his. Yeah. And he probably didn't invent it. Some guy in boxing said that. Yeah. Knockout power in both hands, if you want to say, there's got a big volume of punches. You can say that if you like, but it doesn't become the category. Yeah. So how's his volume? That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Because throwing a lot of punches has a million implications. You may throw a lot of punches because you don't know what you're doing. You could do it because you're scared. You could do it because it's a valuable thing. You could throw a lot of punches, but they're all the wrong punch. So just categorizing and creating categories and then saying who's better at the other, that to me is not breaking down anything.
Okay.
But at the same time, it is, again, kind of a fun thing, and it starts conversations. It's okay to say this guy's got better striking than this guy, but now we got to go further. We got to go down that path. Talk about the striking.
Well, because there's more to it.
Yeah,
like he might have better striking.
Yeah. And sorry, when I say that, I don't mean to be critical because truthfully, not everybody needs to go down that deep, and not every fan needs to. And if I'm using me in some capacity on a broadcast, I'm using me maybe for a very short period of time to go into something deep, because not every audience member wants to go that deep the whole time.
But to validate your point, I think that if I want to hear someone go, he's a volume puncher.
Yeah.
He has better boxing. Yeah. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I can get that anywhere. That's the McDonald's of breaking down a fight. Yeah. I don't want McDonald's. I fucking hate McDonald's.
It's shitty.
I want some real organic food that it comes from a different place.
Yeah. And so if we look at this fight, we've been asked to, let's say somebody said, I would like you guys to break this fight down. We have the choice to approach
what's your opinion of the fight?
Yeah. And we have and we can break down the technical. We can break down some of the story. We can talk about another fight. I think that's the fun of it. This idea of having these barriers where we'll talk about his striking and talk about his wrestling and then say who's going to win and how. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to explore this thing.
Yeah.
But so this guy, the one thing that comes to mind, and it's not as focused just on him, is this idea of taking tough fights. Right? Coming up with tough fights. He took tough fights coming up. And so all of a sudden, yes, he has 18 wins, but some of them were really, really good guys pre-UFC. I think that's mandatory for the next crop of guys.
I do too.
Yeah.
There's no more cakewalks. Because when you get to the UFC, and Ed Soares said this, one of his guys, it was when Glover Teixeira, Glover was training with Lyoto and I. And he goes, I went, who's Glover going to fight? And he goes, I think he's going to fight Bader. I went, why the fuck would Bader take that fight? That's the worst matchup for him. I go, why would his manager take that fight? And he goes, Brendan, it's the UFC.
Yeah, right.
If you can't beat everyone, you shouldn't be here. He goes, we've never turned down a fight. He goes, if my guys aren't ready to compete with anyone in the world, I wouldn't have them in the UFC. I went, man, he's right.
He's right.
He's right.
We just commentated at TKO in Montreal. I was mentioning that show. So the best part about the show is this kid, Tony Laramie, who's a really good kid, and his brother TJ also. They're very, very, very incredibly talented. Tony Laramie took this fight. It was six or 7 days after his 18th birthday. It was his debut as a pro fighter. He has a bunch of amateur fights, won them all first round finishes. So nobody wants to fight this guy because if you even Google him, there's a lot of people, Mark Hominick saying how good he is. You'll come up with Fight Network talking about this 17-year-old kid, and who the fuck wants to fight him? So we could have him not fight for a long time, or say, fuck it, if we're really that good, let's fight somebody good. So the guy, and on the other end, across the cage, making his debut, is a guy named Keith Lee, whose brother Kevin Lee is a high-level UFC fighter. Keith Lee is a motherfucker. These are these guys.
They're both motherfuckers.
This is their debut. Keith Lee is almost 6 feet tall. At 125, maybe 5'10", 5'11". This kid's 5'3", and they have the best fucking fight I've seen in years. Not excitement-wise, it was very exciting, but just high-level technique. This is a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, and they took this fight against each other. And it was a 3-round decision that I think Lee won the first round, and the other, and Tony Laramie won the next 2 and was able to win. But it was tough all on both guys.
Which I think helps their career out even more, win or lose. But you know what the issue is people have, because this is a combat sport, boxing. Boxing, you'll see guys 60-0, Thai, Muay Thai fighting, 70-0. Yeah. But in MMA, it doesn't work that way. There's too many ways to lose. It's a new sport. And I think if you fight a tough guy, even that, they're going to learn so much more from that instead of fighting some who they just walk through.
100%.
You learn nothing from that.
So, and now there's so many fascinating things that came when we got the pleasure of doing this. So Keith, all these people, they took it because they knew that he could beat anyone in the world. He's like hanging out with UFC fighters every day, and he's making his debut. And there were people from Vegas texting people that I know there going, I can't believe Keith lost. How is that possible? What do you mean he lost? What happened? Well, he fought somebody just as good and maybe slightly better than him. And then also on the card, there's this kid, Derek Falk, that is from Oshawa, Ontario, and he's a badass too. And now you've got these 3 guys, and then there's 2 or 3 others. And you talk to any of their coaches, and they know what a couple of them are friends of mine. They know what I do. They respect my view of fighting. And I'll say, yeah, but you know what? Then there's other good fighters out there. And they'll all say to me, you don't understand. You've never seen a fighter like this. Because they've never seen one, they think it's the only one. Yes. But this is a global phenomenon right now. There are motherfuckers, unbelievably talented.
They're coming.
Yeah. So now let's say there's 30 of them. Some of them are going to fight each other. And then when they get to the UFC, they'll be 5-3 and the UFC won't care. And some of them won't. They'll fight cans. If they get enough fights, they'll fight cans. And the guys who fought the tough fights will win. When the can guys
100%.
fight the guys who've been in the tough fights,
100%.
they will win. And so you talk to these coaches now, and they're like, oh man, we got to find some easier fights for our guys. We got to go out there. Let's find. No, man, you got to have them fight each other. And I know you want to get the kid to the UFC at 6-0, but he won't even get there because if there really are 30. Sean or whoever is doing it at the time is going to pick the ones who had the real fights. Well, you're going to have to do it.
Yep. And hopefully the Sean Shelby and whoever the new matchmakers are, since Joe Silva left, hopefully they view it the same way. Like, okay, this guy's 6-3, but the 3 he lost to, all those are UFC caliber guys. Exactly. Like those guys should be in the UFC too. We want that.
Well, that's going to be the reality. So how they view it, hopefully they view the reality. Because the reality is these guys are better. Yes. They lost 3 fights, but they're way better and they're way more prepared. And they are really the best of the best right now. Whereas that guy who's 6-0, fought nobody, cannot beat one of these guys if he's never had that. It's sensitivity to the danger and the trouble and the pressure.
Losing the O. Yeah. And I think that goes back to boxing because, I mean, can you tell me Robbie Lawler's exact fight record win and loss? Maybe you can't. Your balls deep in it. But if you go ask anyone who's involved in the sport, what's Conor McGregor's record? I don't know. He's fucking good. I know he's lost once. Or maybe twice because he lost in Ireland outside the UFC. And what's Ronda's record? I know they're fucking good, but it's different than boxing. Boxing, Mayweather's 49-0. They hang on to that so much. But in the UFC, it really shouldn't be that way.
No.
I can't tell you Stipe's record.
No, it shouldn't be, and it isn't. And so this kid came up fighting tough fights, and he's kind of ferocious. He subs a lot of guys. So it's probably the big picture of this fight. We're probably looking at him trying to close distance and get a body lock. And work that game. And I think that's what we get to watch. But he's the guy who believes his future is way ahead of him. And Caceres is the guy who's like, yes, I am a professional fighter. This is what I do for a living. I don't know Caceres, so maybe he's still like...
Caceres is on and off for me. Yeah. And on and off in the UFC, that doesn't work, especially when you're fighting a guy like Knight because... He's a guy who he and if you look at his background, he always shows up. He's not a hot and cold guy.
That's it.
And again, that goes to your point earlier that you're making. It's the factors, the elements you can control. One is your mental state. And what scares me with Bruce Leroy is a lot of times he just doesn't show up.
And I'm sure we'll talk about this with Cowboy. It feels like he's at his best when he's having fun.
Yeah.
So that's tougher against these grinders, these ornery guys.
It's hard to have fun.
It's hard to have fun.
Because they're not going to allow you to showboat. And
Yair, it was fun for him.
Yeah, really fun.
And it was a very close fight. And he looked fantastic.
He can be himself.
Uriah was not as fun. He did very well, but it got worse for him as the fight went on. You're going to be having a little less fun as that's happening. So some of these guys, they're, and I said it with Jorge, that the guys who have a state of play, like, were you ever playing in a fight? Like, some of these guys are able to fucking go out and play a game.
I was never that guy.
No.
Never that. Oh, God.
I know.
There's no fun.
Holy
this is
shit.
not fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this guy's going to punch me in the head in front of everybody. Like, what if, like...
I'm not salsa dancing like some of these other guys.
But some of these guys...
Cody Garbrandt, how much fun was he having in that Dominic Cruz fight?
Exactly.
Like, he's looking like he's having the time of his life.
And as soon as we're having this conversation, I start thinking, how do I when I go home now, how do I really explain what that is? Do I go in and talk to a neuroscientist? Do I go in and talk to somebody who, deals with children? Like, how do I define what a state of play is really? I need that answer now.
Does it come with experience?
Yeah. Or some guys just like that.
Because Dominic Cruz didn't have a lot of, not Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt didn't have a lot of experience.
No, he didn't.
McGregor in general doesn't have a lot of experience. How much fun does he have?
Yeah. It's true. And so what is that? Now, the easy answer is that it's
sociopath.
That is one possible. Because how the fuck some of these guys are able to do that? But another, an easy answer is the flow state. There's a cocktail of neurotransmitters that happen when you get into a flow state, and
they call it in sports in the zone.
In the zone, yeah. And most people have experienced it in some way or another. Where
I have once in my career.
Yeah,
Gabriel Gonzaga.
Yeah, man.
It was like everything was slow, and I saw everything. There was no nerves. And
time changes.
I felt warm. And it was really strange. I got done. It was like an outer body experience. I'm like, how could I make that happen every fight? And it never happened again.
So now, when I was talking to my friend David, who I do this sports psychology, the fight psychology podcast with, he said to me, I said, I'm going to do Brennan's show. It's going to be really fun. He goes, I don't think he believes in sports psychology. He doesn't seem to have a good opinion of it.
I definitely do. Oh, no, he couldn't be more wrong.
I wonder why I don't know where he got that.
Because I worked with a mental coach for 4 years. I worked with a mental coach and because of George St. Pierre.
Oh, cool.
And at first, I was a little... and it's just an ego thing. I was a young fighter, and I won 4 in a row, and they brought a mental coach in, and my head coach at the time, Lester Bowen, he goes, hey, we'd like you to sit with this guy. I go, for what? To fuck with my mind? Like, I'm already killing it. I have confidence. I'm good, man. And then I lost one. He goes, would you please meet with this guy? I went, I'll meet with him. And so I met with the guy, and it's not...
Maybe Dave just heard that first part somewhere.
Maybe,
or maybe
I don't know.
I think it's cool.
I think it's super important. It's really important. I think a lot of high level athletes do, and fighting is so mental. It's insane, man, that to not have a mental coach, now you're a little bit at a disadvantage, because the most famous and successful fighters I know have mental coaches. Well, it's just something to add to it. I don't know why you wouldn't. And I was for a while. It was an ego thing. I felt like, well, I'm not damaged. I'm
Yeah,
not.
right.
I'm not a. I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
a pussy. Why
Yeah.
would I need that? But it's like
you had the
no.
Russian mentality.
Yeah, I did,
You were
which
like an
isn't
angry-
good.
yeah,
which
right.
isn't good. And when you open yourself to it, you learn that it's a tool that it's not going to hurt you. It's only going to help you.
But in theory, when one of your goals becomes to achieve that state of flow that you had when you fought Gabriel Gonzaga, that becomes part of the mental coaching is to try to find out how we can achieve that on a regular. But
you know what it was for me, and I'd love to hear your partner's opinion on this, is I remember walking out to the fight and thinking, fuck it. If you can't beat Gabriel Gonzaga, you should retire because you're just going to be another guy. If you can't beat him, man, this is it. And I went, that's fair. I made that commitment to myself. I went, that's fair. If I don't win this one, I'm done. I'm going to move on doing something else.
So let's just go out and
let's go out there. Let's have fun.
Yeah.
And see what happens. You're in better shape. You should win this fight. Let's go have fun. And for whatever reason, it just worked.
But think of
and then after that, I put so much pressure on myself. Fight to fight, put so much pressure on because I felt like I have to be world champion. I have to beat this guy. I don't need a striking coach. I'm so good. I don't need this. And this ego monster.
Ego's a fucking terrible thing.
It can really help you or it can fucking kill you, man.
Ego is a real killer on most things in your life, for real.
You have to have some sort of ego to be a professional fighter.
Yeah. But you have to have almost no ego to be able to look at yourself, look at the true failures and weaknesses that you have and then fix them.
Yes.
So it's a real weird dynamic. But it's interesting to me that when you said the flow, the one time you had the experience of flow state and you mentioned having fun and they went together.
Yes.
See, the one time that you really were out to have fun, you achieved that thing. So when we're talking about, Caceres, we're talking about Cowboy, there's something in the connection between this state of play and achieving a flow state, a psychological, neurochemical state of better performance.
And for Cowboy, and we can move on from this fight.
Sure.
Bring it on the card, Jen. For Cowboy, the reason why he fights so much is because he doesn't like that huge buildup where it feels like the Super Bowl and there's all this pressure. So he likes to stay active so he can be in that state that it's just another day. I'm in this flow state. I'm having fun. And that's why I know Cowboy pretty well. Yeah. It's why he fights so often because he doesn't have that huge buildup. Yeah. He can have fun. He can still do his thing. He likes these extreme measures where you see him skydiving and riding bulls and driving fast.
Even that stuff. He's acclimatizing himself to adrenaline. And to fear and all of that stuff. He is a fascinating guy.
Yes.
I did a breakdown about years back, an early one. And it was the first, maybe 4 years ago, and I was really trying to explore some of these topics. And I took what Cowboy said about the time that he looked over and saw Anthony Pettis over there, and he said his mind started going, "Oh fuck, I done pissed this guy off. He's coming at me hard." And he got into that loop. He got into that loop in his head about how oh shit, man. And then his anticipation of the violence and the trauma and the fear and what was the animal that was coming at him became bigger than the thing.
Yes.
And then he's done. And
he
then
hesitated, and that's where that body kick came from. Yep.
And he talked about that publicly and how he then went back and addressed it. And then I showed him in the very next fight. Everything about him looked at in the corner, and I showed him, and I put up his quote, looking at Pettis, and then body language, presentation, shoulders back, the look on his face, the purpose with which everything looked different, and it was fascinating. So he's a mental coach guy too.
He's one of the him, George St. Pierre, and a couple other guys were the first I knew to really do it. And for Cowboys, it does wonders. And you look at this fight with Jorge Masvidal. Cowboys won 12 out of his last 13. Yeah.
Finished 4 welterweights in a row.
Yeah, and what Cowboy, he always, or I shouldn't say always, because Matt Brown tried to bully Cowboy and paid the price. Yes. Yeah. But Matt Brown, I think, as far as skill-wise, is a far cry from Jorge Masvidal. Because you see Cowboy, whenever Cowboy wants to be a bully. He's good going forward when he's having fun and he's in the moment and he's putting these combos together. He's really good at that. Yeah. But as soon as someone draws a line in the sand and goes, fuck you. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, I don't like that.
Exactly.
And so you see in Nate Diaz's fight, he went, oh, you want to do that? Cool, man. I'm gonna just come forward. I'm gonna throw these punches and see how you deal with it. And you see a different version of Cowboy. But I think Cowboy's learned to deal with that. And I think Masvidal, with his boxing, and he mixes it up well. And when I look at the body work of Masvidal, and he's one of my favorite fighters to watch. Yeah. And remember, this is in Denver, Cowboy's hometown. It's at altitude. Cowboy has a lot of hype right now. He has a lot of momentum. and I see who Cowboy has beat, and I see he's gotten over this mental hurdle.
Yes.
There hasn't been a huge key fight for Masvidal that makes me think he can beat Cowboy. Because he's been on the losing end of so many bullshit split decisions that piss me off. Because a lot of these I think he deserved to win.
Yeah.
But he has lost them, and he's lost to guys who, I mean, they're not world beaters. I mean, Benson Henderson, beat him in a split decision, but really, there's not a lot of world beaters on his resume.
Yeah, it's true. You talk about authenticity. That's what's interesting about him, and the way that he fights is authentic to him, and there's a visceral nature to it. And as I watched all those fights and did that breakdown, it was the smoothness.
I loved your breakdown.
Thank you. I loved doing it. I love doing that. I just loved the time and putting it together and finding things, and it doesn't quite work. And then sometimes it takes weeks because you're trying to time it right, and you're trying to tell the story right, and you're missing a piece, or you find something and then look at it later and it doesn't really work. But I just love watching him fight. But Cowboy's a fucking a tank, and you're like,
stylistically, Masvidal should pose a lot of problems for Cowboy.
Yeah.
But when you talk about like water, in certain cases, Masvidal is like water and put together. Then other times he's like an iceberg, where he's a very slow starter. Yeah. He takes a while to get going.
Yeah.
If you allow Cowboy to get in a flow, get in that flow state,
you're right.
You're screwed.
Yeah, it's
especially, true. But imagine last time Cowboy fought in Denver, he fought Melvin Gillard.
Yeah.
And that fight was insane.
Yeah. Cowboy's fought a lot of dudes.
He fought everybody.
Yeah,
he's beat some of the very best in the world.
The thing is, if you tell me, I mean, there's little things. Masvidal likes to play with his hands down sometimes, which is not great against a guy who's been head kicking everybody, obviously.
Literally everybody.
Yeah, and sometimes he gets comfortable with his hands down. I was talking to Angelo Reyes, who's a boxing coach in Las Vegas last night or the night before. And
he has a gym out there, Ray's Gym. Yeah.
And he trains Frank and Alex Ricci, young guy. We were talking about it, and his thing was, Cowboy only needs to kind of land 3 or 4 or 5 to land the clean one that'll put you away. And when you really look at that truth in a fight, that's a terrifying truth.
But Masvidal hasn't been finished since what, 2009?
Yeah, exactly. He's super tough. He's mentally tough. He's ferocious. He'll have the right mindset to bully Cowboy. And once that happens, you're basically dealing with Cowboy's leg kicks, body kicks, and head kicks. It's as much as we like the combinations that he puts together. So jab, low one to the body, head kick, hook on the way down that he did against Rick Story and those. That's really cool. It's all just brilliant fundamentals.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Put together.
Yeah. Those guys are fucking hard to fight. Where is the weakness?
Yeah.
Where is, and people will say, well, show the weaknesses. Sometimes Iaquinta will keep his hand down. Well, sometimes he won't. So that's not, he'll get head kicked. Well, he might. His left hand could be down and might get head kicked. Or he might be like, for this one, dealing with this guy's, I'm going to deal with head kicks in a different way. These guys change so much. But the hard part with a Cowboy is he's just fucking good at everything.
He's really, really good.
Once he gets out there, it all moves together. He's kind of the best candle. He hasn't changed and become the light bulb. He hasn't changed and become a different technology. He's just so fucking good at everything that, and Greg Jackson's when he gets out of his own way, he's a genius at combat.
And obviously he's doing something right because he's won 12 out of his last 13. Yeah. The huge X factor for this is Masvidal will leave that leg out, and Cowboy will eat your leg alive, man.
So... Now,
it's such an interesting fight.
It is. It really is.
Because I think if Cowboy wins this one, now you're talking top 5. He's 100%. In the conversation for title contention.
Yeah, he wants to fight Robbie Lawler 6 weeks after this.
Robbie Lawler turned the fight down.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
How crazy is that?
That would be such a sick fight.
But I think Robbie Lawler, he's going through. He's trying to figure. He goes, let's not jump into this. I don't have a ton of fights left. I want to make sure I'm set at camp. I just left this camp. I want to be in the right frame of mind. I want to have all my ducks in a row. Yeah. Then I'll take the fight.
Yeah.
Anyone out there listening, don't get twisted. Robbie Lawler's not scared of anyone ever who's ever walked this earth. It has nothing to do with that. I think it's more of him just going through transition, going, not right now.
The reality
I'm down
is
to do
life.
it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Cowboy versus Thompson. Yeah. Cowboy versus Wonderboy, such a fun fight, man.
Because how do you beat all of these sort of spatial manipulation vibes and movement and traps that Wonderboy, you beat him with fundamentals. Yes. If you're going to beat him, you beat him with fundamentals. And fucking Cowboy has sick fundamentals.
But back to Masvidal is another thing to think about is both these guys have underrated grappling.
I think we're going to see a lot of
is
grappling.
Amazing. His takedown, his timing's very good.
Yeah.
And people forget Cowboy's very good at wrestling. He works damn hard on his wrestling.
I think we're going to see a lot of wrestling. I think. Yeah, and I think you can easily underestimate Cowboy. In his wrestling, you can easily be like, "Yo, bro, man, fuck, I ain't scared of this. I'll take this guy down. I'll take this man," and that's terrifying. And he's a athletic grappler. You know what I mean?
Explosive,
and it's interesting to see that flow versus, an explosive, powerful grappler. In theory, you flow around the powerful guy, but Cowboy's pretty smooth too.
Yeah.
And then now I look at it, and sometimes from a doing my job standpoint, I think maybe sometimes it would be easier to build a structure of how to do this and break it down a certain way. But I get to a point, and I'm having this kind of issue about how you look at fights, or how I look at fights. I want to see the truth, right? So when I look at just the techniques, sometimes it's like, say, leg kicks, Cowboy's leg kicks. If you eat 6 of those, you're in a lot of trouble. So we start
even if you block them, doesn't matter.
So we sit there and we try to make an assessment of Cowboy's tools and how he might use them. Soon as we figure that out, and we'd say that's the breakdown. So I build a breakdown. Cowboy's leg kicks, the way he uses his left hook, the body kick, and using the fake to get to that. Let's say those are the things. With McGregor, it was the flim flam, the Celtic cross, whatever. And then say we go old school and we say these are the concerns that you have, and then you say, well, Masvidal can do these things. The truth is, if I know that, both of their coaches know that.
They all know that.
They all know that. And that's where the breakdown now start really breaking something down for me.
Well, you don't know how they're going to adapt to those, because the Masvidal who fought Jake Ellenberger is going to be a different Masvidal who brings his game to fight Cowboy. Because you can't fight Cowboy the way you fought Jake Ellenberger. You can't.
You can't. No, you can't. Not at all. So when you now, to me, to really try to tell the truth, when somebody says, tell me the truth about this fight, to really tell the truth, we have to acknowledge what some of the issues might be. And then we have to acknowledge that what Greg Jackson will do with that information. You know what I mean? So that becomes really hard. And then you wonder, am I going too far down this rabbit hole that now it will not be as interesting to people when they hear about it? Do you know what I mean?
So I think it makes it more interesting, because I think people go, wow, that's a fun matchup. Or maybe they go, that's not a fun matchup. Masvidal's lost a shitload of fights. We go, whoa.
Yeah.
No. He's lost some very close split decisions, but stylistically, it's such a fun matchup. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the easy thing to say.
Yeah.
But when you go down the road of how's Masvidal how's he gonna adapt to Cowboys' bullying technique?
Yeah.
Or how's he gonna deal with the pressure of fighting Cowboys' hometown?
How's
Cowboy gonna deal with it?
If you were the coach,
I didn't like to fight at home.
Yeah. If you were the coach, how would you deal with those leg kicks? And the answer to that is the answer to this. So do we check them? Do we get out of the way of them? Do we dive in on them? Do we
counter them with punches?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's what he does. I think he takes one and counters with punches, or checks and counters with punches, or slides out and counters with punches.
Either way, you have to make Cowboy pay when he throws that leg kick. Because Cowboy will stop doing it. And Cowboy gets tall when you throw a punch at him. He'll get tall and he'll stop kicking.
100%. And then think of that as when you're watching it. Why do they do that, and what does it mean? And then imagine doing anything. Again, we're going back to domestication. If my dog shits on the rug and I tell him he's a good boy, I've taught him to shit on the rug.
Yeah.
Right? So if every single time Cowboy throws something at you, well, in this case, it's a leg kick, and he hurts you, he's like, good boy.
Yep.
Good boy.
Keep doing it.
If he does the thing but gets hurt, that thing starts to become something that bad boy. And you're literally teaching the other guy. And I think that as a fan, once we kind of understand that, it changes our understanding of the dynamic within the fight. That the techniques and the tools are just tools.
Yep.
It isn't about which kick necessarily. Then after we discuss this for weeks or months, later we'll come back, we'll absorb all this this understanding that we have about that dynamic, and then it'll be about tools again for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all based off how is Masvidal going to respond to the leg kicks. We don't know. I can say what I would do or what you would do, but his coaches might say, no, we're actually going to, every time he kicks, we're going to shoot and go for a takedown.
Yeah. And sometimes the same trait that is really good for you as a fighter becomes really bad. And Greg is really smart at figuring out how to do that. So, for example, Masvidal is like, fuck you, you can't hurt me. Well, if he takes that attitude, by kick number 3, we've changed the fight.
You're going to get hurt. Yeah.
We've changed the fight.
Yeah.
So, you worked with Greg a lot, right?
Yeah.
Did he build game trees for your, like, you know, from this position we move to these?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And from here you have these options?
Yep.
And would he share them with you, or he would train you without needing to look too much at them?
He shared them with me. We would go over it, and then I would just go through the things, and he'd remind me, and then before the fight we'd go over it.
And a lot of it was a reference for him in how to train you, not for you and what to do.
Yes, and a lot of it was, I remember the first kind of tree thing was when I was getting ready for Nogueira, I went to Jackson's to train, and a lot of it was in Nogueira's guard. If you do this, he's going to do this. This is the tree.
Yeah, that's so good. Greg is so smart, and so studying fighting is cool. Sometimes you want to study the coaches, because if you see how they're thinking, it influences your understanding of what's happening and why it's happening.
With the fighters too.
Yeah, with the fighters,
you'll get a way better understanding of why the fighters are doing what they're doing.
Especially someone like Greg. So I reached out to Matt Hume, who I admire a great deal.
Yeah,
and
brilliant mind.
And basically, my wife is going on tour with the show, so I have a little more sort of freedom with my own time. I miss her. I'd rather she was home, but she's doing her thing, and it's cool. I'll go visit her. So I was like, well, I'm going to take some vacation from work. I'm going to take 10 or 12 days, and I want to go and just shadow Matt Hume. So I sent him a message, asked him, and I outlined, I said, you know, I'll clean the gym, or I'll do menial tasks, or I'll be helpful. I'll stay out of your way. I won't document it unless you want me to. It's for my own learning. I need to have new inspiration. You need new mentoring. You need somebody to point. It's cool you're wandering down all these paths, but what if there's something going on over here that I'm just not aware of that would be so exciting for the next 2 years of my life
that
to
no
study?
One sees,
yeah. And shadowing Matt, I could learn that. So I reached out. He said, yeah, maybe. And he said to circle back around.
Yeah, maybe.
This. Yeah, he said, I'm not opposed to it. Let's discuss it. It can't be done in January, but let's.
Wouldn't you want to do it when he's training
Demetrius?
Yes, like what Demetrius camp, see how he's going through it?
And I would take
that's fascinating to me, because Demetrius is a guy who obviously top of the food chain, and he has all these different, you know, guys coming after him, so they constantly have to adapt. Matt Hume, as far as pure MMA coaches, I mean, he's pound for pound top 1 or 2.
100%.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing to me, and I think this is the future, and I'm saying that as a huge fan of Greg and Faraz and Duke, but I think the future is like a coach and a fighter, not a system. Now, Greg has made it work. My concern, and I mentioned this on Rogan's podcast like 3 years or 4 years ago, I'm like, if we know this is today and this is 2020, is fighting or 2030, is fighting going to look different? He's like, fuck yeah. Then why are we training it like we know everything?
Because that's all we know.
Yeah. But our job, but then Conor McGregor is not doing that. He's innovating. And innovating, how you beat something that is commoditized is through innovation.
Yep.
And so so Greg, I asked him about that when I interviewed him last. I've only interviewed him the one time, and it was fascinating. Right away, I wanted to talk to him more. He was like, we had to decentralize the system. We don't teach everybody underhook, inside bicep control, head to knee, this thing. We build custom strategies and plans and expressions of combat for each fighter. Yeah. And he can do that. But it's still one fighter, one coach. Even though that one coach has those fighters, he is accustomed to them. But Matt Hume literally is, in my opinion, just searching for the truths about combat in the environment that we're in. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, there's rules. He goes, yeah, but also combat is with weapons, and we don't have that either.
Yeah.
You know, the truth within the confine, the absolute truth, seeking truly perfection. And I asked him, you can't achieve perfection. He's like, no, but you have to search for it.
Yeah.
And then one day he comes with the perfect athlete who listens, trusts him implicitly, and will be part of this experiment to perfection with Matt Hume. And you get the best fighter in the world. So I want to go study him.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And just I'll stay in a shitty hotel. I'll get in the morning and clean the place, be humble, learn, shut my mouth unless he wants me to talk, take some training from him while I'm there, but that not being the focus, and just learn something. This is the best coach in the world.
Him so great.
Yeah. Best coach in the world with the best fighter in the world. So
I love that idea.
Yeah, I'm going to do it for sure.
That's awesome, man. I think we only got What, 2 more? I mean, the Arlovski, Francis, we talked a little bit about it. Again, Francis hasn't shown me anything where he's going to be the next, heavyweight champion of the world. He's fought he's fought nobodies in the UFC, but this might be that bridge where he goes, I fought nobodies, but
now I just beat Andrei Arlovski.
It's an older Arlovski. He's coming off 3 losses. That still doesn't justify anything.
It's true. This is one of those ones. This would be the one where you're like, now that's your biggest win, and now Schaub and Black are not convinced yet. Black and Brown are not convinced. But. It's really hard to see. It's hard to tell with a guy when you're fighting lower level guys, and when you're throwing punches sometimes from here. You know what I mean? We don't know.
Some guys with Kimuras.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to work on Arlovski.
Exactly. So then we don't know. But I get it. I would love it if he was a legitimate heavyweight that was evolved past the last generation. We need it. So I'd love to see that. And I'm hoping to see that. And I'm not yet sure that we're going to see that. But now we, right there, have the reason to watch the fight.
But I think if you look at the UFC, and it's very similar to WWE, there's going to be these stories, these trees. And so Derek Lewis gets Travis Brown, and then Francis Gano gets Andrei Arlovski. Obviously, Derek Lewis got the tougher of the 3, even though Arlovski beat him. But I think... Right now in the careers, I think Travis Brown is the toughest fight.
Yeah, when you look at his body of work, there's some fucking great stuff.
Yes, there's some great stuff. For Arlovski too, but he's lost 3 in a row, KOs, finishes.
Yeah. Older.
So you can see what they're doing with those 2 guys. And maybe the winners of this, they're going to fight
I would suspect it only makes sense.
Maybe, or the UFC goes, well, we got all these dinosaurs, so we'll just keep building these 2 up, and then them. Yeah.
The problem with that, so Joe Silva, there was once a story about he had this plan that would ultimately end up with Crow Cop. Like it was 4 or 5 key fights where at the end, Crow Cop versus Randy or something.
Like a tournament style.
Yeah, but just lay these out in hopes that we get this. And as the story goes, when that fell apart, and Silva is like a science-based guy, a real atheist, and a guy who looks at the world.
Smart guy.
Yeah, very smart. Very smart. Interesting, super cool. Joe, I like.
Super cool unless you're fighting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. I never.
That's part of the business. I actually love Joe. I have no animosity towards him. I really like Joe Silva.
I do too, and I really like. He's again one of those guys. I like every chance I get to talk to him because I'm going to learn something different. I'm going to have a different perspective, and I really value that. I just like him. He's a cool guy. But he's now at the point where he's just like, listen, there's too many variables, and there's not enough sample size, and you never know, and you can never plan who's going to win. And he's like, people always think that we have some hope that one will win or the other won't. He's like, and knowing his science-based, atheist-based view of the world, I 100% believe him. Now, that doesn't mean that Dana or other people don't hope this one wins or that one wins.
Of course you hope, because you know what's going to sell and ratings and who's a bigger draw, but MMA math never works.
Never works.
MMA gods don't give a fuck.
No.
And for example, Ronda Amanda Nunes.
Yeah,
MMA gods went, you don't want to give her any media? That's cool. Watch this.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't care.
Well, now the media part, and I know Joe was a guy, and you could see it was out of his passion, and
he doesn't make the big fights.
You know what, Joe. I see about him that I admire a lot of fucking things about Joe Rogan, but he has this sense of justice.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Joe Silva.
No, Joe Rogan.
Okay.
He has this sense of justice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. There's certain things that should be right.
Yes.
You know?
And he'll let you know.
Yeah. And
which is rare in this world, especially a guy in his position.
Yeah.
Most would, piggyback, the UFC's doing the right thing, but he's not that guy.
But the part with so that sense of justice and the fact that he will say what he thinks is important. Other people we should all learn from that, and it's really good. So I like what he said and why he said it, but I did totally disagree with him when I looked at the big picture, and that
in regards to what?
Spending money to market
just Ronda.
Yes, that I did, because right now, if we walk out onto the street, we're going to pass thousands of billboards, signs on cabs. You're going to pick up your phone and there's going to be thousands of ads, and 99% of them you don't pay attention to because you don't care. Most marketing is useless. It does nothing. Mm-hmm. And when you spend your money on Ronda Rousey, that marketing will actually happen. My mom will see it. Oh, Ronda Rousey is fighting. When you spend it on somebody that nobody knows, it will have no value. So is it wrong? 100% it's wrong. This is the champion of the world. And in Joe's sense of justice that I agree with, 100% you should do it. But we live in a world where these guys over here have to keep their job and spend their budgets. And they're like, if I spend my money on this, I'm going to get fired. Like, we will achieve nothing. Nobody will know who Amanda Nunes is.
Don't you think it's very short-sighted? Because they go, all right, we're a new company. We just purchased the UFC. Yep. Let's take all of our marketing and put it in this one girl's corner who hasn't fought in 411 days. Her mental state, not great. She's a dark person. We have this champ over here. Did anyone go, what happens if she wins, though? She won't.
I heard Joe, I can't remember if he was talking to you or someone, but he was like, there were people who were just thinking it was a mulligan. She was guaranteed to win. But they don't know anything about fighting.
Yeah.
It was
us on the Fight Companion.
Yeah.
That's a problem because it doesn't work like that. And to your point, I get it, but...
So we have two options.
I think you're so wrong.
Yeah.
I think you're so wrong because imagine if they didn't put those marketing dollars into Ronda from the start. Yeah. We wouldn't know who she is. Imagine.
I don't agree with that. I think that's where the
reason why we know who she is because she was winning in the fashion she won.
Exactly.
Now Amanda Nunes
is
she's
winning
knocking
in a similar
girls
fashion.
out.
That's a really
knocking
good
out
point.
Misha Tate.
That's a really good point.
Knock out Ronda Rousey.
But
she beat Shevchenko.
Yeah. But so I think the thing for me is I get it. I 100% agree with everything you're saying. And I agree with Joe in that it should be this way. But I'm saying that
it has to be that way,
in the room where a bunch of marketing guys, and I don't want to analyze marketing guys, and neither my observation doesn't mean I agree with them. In fact, I disagree with them. I think they should be marketing the champion in my world. But I'm looking at why they do the things that they do. If a bunch of guys sit around and they go, okay, what do we got? We got $5 million. Where are we going to spend it? Well, if we spend $5 million on this remote, literally nobody will see it and nobody will know about this remote because 99% of all marketing is ignored by all of us all the time. 99% of shit there is ads everywhere and it means nothing to you. It's become so background noise. You don't know what the 5 newest movies are, do you?
Kind of.
Yeah. So, okay, like movies. Do you know what the 5 biggest video games are right now?
No.
They're advertised to you all day, all the time. All day, all the time.
But that's not my world, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so those people will ignore, when they see a person on there that they don't know, all they'll see is, UFC fights are happening. Oh, it's a woman, I wonder. It'll do nothing. It'll be ignored by people.
Don't you think it's very short-sighted? Because if we have those, back to your point of your controller, if we have those 2 controllers, we say, well, people know this one controller, and there's no one in that room go, we do know that controller, but that controller hasn't worked in 411 days. That controller is also dark as fuck, man. So, that controller, we also have to talk into turning on the TV. This other controller's been doing work. Shouldn't we put some marketing dollars in there? And also, there's a chance that controller's only going to turn the TV on once. And then after that, what do we do? And they go, I don't know. Let's bank on it turns on more than once. But this one's for sure going to turn on way more times.
I agree with you. And what you're saying fundamentally, inherently, I agree.
Business-wise, though.
But that part is where I think, so this, again, perfect world. And this is sad, I think, in most things. We know, and I believe this, if you think long-term, you will succeed. I think the only way you succeed is if you think long-term. You go long play on everything in your life. Mm-hmm. And that's my philosophy, which is why I agree with you. That's how I would do it. But most businesses, they're inhuman. And they're thinking about, how do I make the most right now? So we're going to spend $1 million, but if this thing does 1.4 million pay-per-views, we'll make $40 million. It will be, but it's a sure thing. And so, but wouldn't it be great if she fought again? Well, hopefully she'll fight again. We'll make another 140. What if she doesn't? Well, we made 140.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
And they agreed with you.
I hate
agreed
that.
with you.
Yeah.
I just think now, she's, the last post they got from her was a Harry Potter quote, and she's off into the distance. And now we're like, all right, now we're stuck with this champ who's pissed.
Yeah.
This champ who's not happy, disgruntled.
Yeah.
And now you're going to sell us on a fight. Now she wants to fight the winner of Home and Shevchenko.
So nobody wants to defend the title once. They all want to go after another title. Mathematically, that doesn't work.
Well, because that's the blueprint to get to Conor McGregor.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to make the most money, be a two-way champion. But it doesn't work
it doesn't work that way.
Because you have to be such a star power. And also, the UFC, just like the fans and the analysts learn that they've given Conor so much power now. He has so much power that he can do that. They don't want that to keep happening. You can't give a guy who can hold up 2 divisions, because the rest of the division goes, what the fuck about us? We go, sorry guys.
But so here's the other argument again. So a lot of the side I'm taking here is almost. It's important to me to tell you, it's distasteful to me. What I'm saying,
as a purist, you should hate it.
Yeah, I do. What I'm saying about the realities of business. So again, this is me and my love of fighting, and this is me going, oh shit, how does the world work? Oh fuck, I hate most of this.
You're talking about reality.
Reality.
Yeah, I hear you.
I fucking hate reality.
Yeah.
But
it's funny how you at the beginning of this podcast, I was talking about reality, and you were talking about being the outlier. Now I'm the outlier. You're the reality.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to just the fighting, this is all. I'm in love with all of it. When it comes to this stuff, the reason reality kind of sucks, but the reason you need to deal with it is because you can work from wherever you find yourself. If you're mounted by somebody and you think to yourself, I'm cool, I'm in guard, you're fucked.
Yes.
But if you're mounted by somebody and you go, okay, I'm mounted. If I can get on one hip and I can push into there and get a half guard, you can work from there.
Or if you're that Russian heavyweight, you Ezekiel choke the fuck out
exactly,
of him.
which was pretty cool.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And now maybe other people will make that work. Him going to mount was a key, kind of setting it up from underneath half.
He gave it to him, yeah.
But so if I live in a world where I'm like, this guy should get a title shot, it should be like this, they should do this kind of thing, I'm not accepting that I'm mounted. I'm saying I'm in guard. The reason I will address this is the realities of business, not because I agree. In fact, I disagree. But I can't do anything.
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do except now. And again, people will debate that. So here's one of my mantras in life is complaining is inaction disguised as action. So when you complain, you often feel like you did something, and that's all the action you took. Yeah, that's all the action you took. If you don't complain, and now I'm not saying be okay with it. I hate that they didn't advertise the champion of the world.
But you get why.
But I get why. And when I get why, then I can, and I accept that truth. I'm mounted. Fuck.
No, I get why they did.
Then I can sit there and go, can I do anything about this? Would there be a way to influence this? Is there some way? But it starts with accepting it. So I hate the fact that probably the marketing guys are right to spend that money on Ronda, even though they only get one out of there. They go, see, we made $130 million. We were correct. But I think that's wrong. But I know why they do it. Now that I know why they do it, I can actually think about it. Is there something I could do other than just disagree? Because disagreeing is going to get me nowhere. So it's inaction disguised as action.
That's fair. Yep. So then what's your take on this whole Conor Floyd Mayweather talk? Are you a fan of it? Is it a shit show to you? Is it a bit of a circus? Because if you get why they put all those marketing dollars into Ronda, you can get why the only thing Dana White is talking about is Floyd Mayweather versus Conor. Yeah,
I get it. I get it 100%. And so then we go back to what I really care about, which is fighting. And as opposed to that other stuff, which I accept and acknowledge. Because
you have to. It's reality.
Because I have to. It's reality. Yeah. I hate that, but it's true. And the fighting. I do want to see that fight.
Me too.
I really want to see that fight. The biggest thing for me that is really weird, and this is just, it's just one more plateau to try to figure out how to hack through in an innovative way. And it's possibly one that's way too big. And Conor's answer to things is think around them, is innovate around them. He cannot beat Floyd Mayweather by just going in and being a boxer. But is there, and I know when I say this, it sounds like I'm saying two opposite things, but I don't believe I am. Is there a way to beat him not thinking like a boxer? Now, I know I only have two hands, but can I beat him by setting some different trap he's unfamiliar with?
Which is why I give Conor a chance, because and people go, it's ridiculous. He'd eat him up in boxing. Correct. If Conor sits there in front of him and plays that Canelo Alvarez game where he just does what a boxer would do, then Floyd eats him up all day. Yeah. Conor's not going to do that because he's not a pure boxer.
No,
he's going to come from different angles. Yeah. It's a different distance.
100%.
His stance is going to be narrow. He's going to go southpaw, traditional. Yeah. Complete. His hands are going to be down. It's something that Floyd hasn't had to deal with yet, and especially at an older age. And that's why. And we talk about fights that let the sport grow. This would do that
100%. And I agree with you fully that the answer, the challenge of winning a fight, winning a contest with Floyd Mayweather is not achieved by trying to outbox Floyd Mayweather. It's trying to innovate around it somehow. Yes. And now, can you to do that, you reverse engineer a situation in which you win. So I win by achieving this objective somehow. How could we achieve that objective? What's his name? He's a friend of Rogan's. He's that guy, the 4-hour work week.
Oh, Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. How would Tim Ferriss answer this? Tim Ferriss would find the hack. The answer to, and we should ask Tim Ferriss. Do you know him?
I do know.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss would read someone else's thing and then regurgitate
it. So he's not a friend?
No. I love Tim Ferriss. I'm just saying that's what he interviews, famous and successful people.
Exactly. But so what he does is he finds the ways that they find the back door to something.
Yes.
Is there a back door to beating Floyd Mayweather? Just abstractly thinking. With only using 2 fists and the rules and the structures that you have. I
think it is keeping it unconventional, not 100%. Being a boxer, using his distance that he uses in the UFC, not sitting in front of him. And for the UFC and for guys like us, it's a win-win. Even if Floyd or even if Conor loses, if he doesn't get knocked out, we win.
Yeah.
We win.
Yeah, true.
You're the best of all time. Our guy's not even in your arena.
Exactly.
Just went 12 rounds with you.
Exactly. You know what? Another real...
Me and Rowan were talking about this. Imagine if Conor won. Imagine if Conor knocked him out.
Imagine that. This is the greatest superhero of combat
We'd
sports
have to
for
get
all
tattoos.
eternity.
We'd have to get Conor McGregor tattoos.
It's true.
I'd have to get one on my fucking neck.
Ass.
With everything. I don't know what we would do. The world would explode if he knocked out Floyd Mayweather.
Well, and all of a sudden, conversations about the greatest of any... I mean, it would just be insane if he could do it.
He'd be the new Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Conor should just retire.
Yeah,
he'd just retire.
And he probably would.
I'm best of all time.
I mean, I would if I was...
I'd walk off.
What's another important ingredient? If we're starting with a macro answer, we're looking for the hack, the way to backdoor this. One is we move backwards. We move away from Mayweather. Mayweather is weakest coming forward. And McGregor is strong, moving backwards. Mayweather may go, you come here, no, you come here, everybody boos. Fuck it, too bad. I'm going to wait until you come forward. That's at least a starting place.
True.
Move away from him.
True. And force Floyd to come forward. And hopefully Floyd has the arrogance, because it's boxing, to think he can come forward on a guy like Conor McGregor. Yeah. And he will be sadly mistaken when he eats that left hand. From a different angle that no one throws.
Yeah. So when we're having this conversation, there are currently boxing experts that, if they were listening to this, are just like, anything we've said that has made any sense, we've now lost all our credibility. We're complete clowns. But I truly believe there's always an answer. There is no answer if you're just going to try to outbox that man. But there's an answer if you're going to change the game, innovate the way that people fight with their hands. And people will be like, boxing's been around for 100 years, everything's been done. Well, as soon as you think that, that's when somebody comes along and fucks with it.
And that's why I give Conor McGregor a shot when I analyze his fight, because he is not going to box him. Yeah. He's coming from different angles, different southpaw, traditional distance that we haven't seen Floyd Mayweather fight yet.
And I almost don't want to put this one out there, but fuck. How will he respond to faked kicks? Can you, in boxing, am I allowed to move my hips the way ever I want?
Of course you are. There's nothing in the rule book.
Yeah, exactly. So that all of a sudden, if Floyd, that crosses his mind, well, now I better get in with some of these guys. Mm-hmm. That's the way you do it. You don't just go, are you fucking kidding me? I've seen this guy box. He's a novice compared to me. If you do that, McGregor has a chance. If you start accepting the truth that this is an actual challenge, for a lot of reasons, you'll bring in guys to emulate all kinds of things, because you need to be familiar with the things you'll see. Because Mayweather is an over-preparer. So he has to keep with that, even though he's way better than this man at the thing they're going to compete in. Because if he doesn't, this guy will come in with some hacks that you're not expecting.
And good luck trying to find a guy to emulate Conor McGregor in training camp. Yeah. We can find a counter puncher to emulate Floyd Mayweather. Maybe not as good as defense, but we can find it.
Yeah.
It's easier to emulate a counter puncher, pure boxer, than a mixed martial artist who's competing in a boxing event.
But the hardest thing is to emulate the best one.
Yes.
That's a problem. But I believe what we're saying is in the realm of possibility, but it is not answered. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Floyd Mayweather doesn't get touched. Okay, McGregor hasn't got touched a great deal lately either. And he's got a huge reach advantage. He's way bigger.
I would bet my life savings when they fight, Conor touches him.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
the out, though. I don't like that. Whenever I get in this debate with someone, they go, Floyd's best of all time, Canelo couldn't do anything. He's the best boxer. You were talking about
everything you're saying is true. What they're saying is true.
That does nothing for this argument. That means nothing to me right now.
I agree with you. But we're thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that you have any shot.
Yep.
So the conversation that we're having begins with the only mindset that's possible.
You have to be open-minded to Conor McGregor approaching this in a different way and not engage in a pure boxing match.
Exactly. And even still, he's so much bigger than this man who doesn't, land very hard on people. But if McGregor tried to box him, but he wouldn't. It's fascinating.
It's a fun debate. I love talking about it. And I think it's going to happen. I really do.
I do too. Actually, I really do too. Why? I mean, again, we go back to reality. So this one suits both. We like it because from a combat and a curiosity, it's great. And actually, in all this
checks
shit,
off both.
It works because
the biggest fight in the world.
Yeah, they want to make money. The reason that Mayweather Promotions and the UFC exist is to make money off of combat sports. So they do that.
You're talking about the two biggest moneymakers ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Combining.
And
it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly. And so that's why the best deals that you ever make in your life, and you've probably made a lot of them because you're doing really well, is a deal that works for everybody involved.
True.
You and the other person.
True.
And when it also works for fans and when it works.
It's a win-win.
It's a win.
I don't know why
It'll happen. It'll happen.
Let's do the main event, and then we get you out of here, bro. I could talk to you forever.
Yeah.
You're the first guy where we don't have to do current event. No, we just get into it, man. I love it.
It's true. It's been really fun.
This main event's interesting between Shevchenko and Juliana Pena. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. Maybe you've mentioned on your breakdown, but I really haven't. You got to take into account that it's a 5-round fight, and it's at altitude.
Yeah. True.
And with Shevchenko and her background and her striking pedigree and who she's beat before and her close decision with Amanda Nunes, which I think if it was 5 rounds, she would have beaten Nunes. I think she would have.
It was going that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Shevchenko, 5 rounds, she's made for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Pena is very similar to Woodley, where she's a spark plug. She comes after you.
100%.
She likes to close the distance. She's good in the clinch. She's not better than Shevchenko in the clinch. Yeah. And I think Pena's the favorite, which is crazy.
Yeah, somebody's going to make a lot of money off this fight. Listen, if Pena wins this fight, you have to be a fan for life because the fact of the matter, from what we've seen so far. So again, fact is based on the last few times we've seen Pena and what she's capable of. Shevchenko is infinitely more skilled than her.
In every way.
In every way. Except if she's on your back. If she's on your back, you're in trouble. She has more sensitivity to it. And there's all these things that you develop with hundreds of fights. When you analyze fighters who've fought as much as her and talk to them and try to work stuff out or speak to their coaches, things really change. So the way we see time is different for all of us. We see it, you and I, everybody in this room, people watching, more or less we're seeing it the same way. But the way that a Major League Baseball home run hitter sees time is very different. Yeah. And they see time very differently because of the training. The way that the experience of that ball. Most of us, regardless of how much we trained or how good of batters we were, a real pitcher,
ball.
Yeah. They are capable of, in real time, performing and making those actions because of a lifetime of acclimatization to that speed and an adaptation around it. So Shevchenko's fucking brain works like that.
Yeah.
That's what their brains work like.
And Pena, to me, and I say this with all due respect, she's more of a brawler, get in your face, make it a dirty fight. Yeah. With 5 rounds, it favors Shevchenko so much, especially at altitude.
100%. I agree.
I think it's the decision for Shevchenko. Yeah.
It's one of those ones where I would be fucking thrilled to see Pena win that fight because what you would have just witnessed, because her whole thing is heart and drive. She wants it. She's ferocious. She has self-belief. That's kind of made her what she is. Her skills developed out of a desire to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Her fights go her way. Katzengano, that's fucking legit. Her fights go her way because she fucking wants them to. And in most cases, when you're fighting another guy and you both want that, and it's going to come down to who's better. But she has superseded skill on a few occasions because of that. If she does this with somebody this much better than her, it's a rare and fascinating and beautiful thing to see.
I think if it was a 3-round fight, if it was on the, if it was the co-main event, I would probably side with Pena.
Yeah.
I really would. But in 5 rounds, I think Shevchenko just picks her apart and is winning round by round. It gets momentum as they go on.
I agree. And so we take the big picture things like vision and experience and all of that stuff. And then we take sort of the medium picture things like how you fight this fight if you're Shevchenko. And that is how she just fought Holly Holm.
Yes.
Remember?
He was bigger,
yeah. And the Holly Holm fight, I'm a huge Holly Holm fan.
Me too.
And it wasn't going into Ronda. She was my very first UFC breakdown. So I analyzed everything of hers. And and that's the thing, when you spend dozens or 50 hours studying somebody, you really develop a different relationship with them. Even though I've never met Jorge Masvidal, but I have an affinity to him now. I've studied his art, and he appreciates that somebody spent all that time. And so it develops something. So I have that with Holly Holm. She was the very first, and I saw it, and I'm like, she's gonna kick Ronda in the head. But when she fought Shevchenko did Ronda her, drew her in, and smashed her for coming forward.
Yeah.
Just kept drawing her and smashing her for coming forward. That's tailor-made for a ravenous, distance-closing grappler.
Pressure fighter.
Yeah. This is so. The fact that if anybody, I don't bet on fights.
Yeah,
and I usually tell people don't bet on fights.
I always tell people don't listen to my picks because I'm usually biased. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who fight, and I usually pick with my heart, not my brain.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my brain thinks. I'll tell you what my heart thinks.
Yeah.
So you guys decide.
Exactly. And that. For a viewer, that's cool, man. You have the responsibility, I think, to express yourself. That's all you have to do. So you can say, man, that's my boy. I want him to win. Well, they know that's why. And so it's up to them.
Yep.
But I tell people don't bet at all. Too many variables. Like crazy shit happens.
Fighting's a bad sport to bet on.
Yeah. But this is one of those ones. If she's a big underdog, some people are going to get paid.
It's almost even money. Did the money come in on Shevchenko?
Yeah.
Chin?
Yep.
Oh, it did.
It did?
So
what is it?
Minus 155 for Shevchenko.
And plus 130. So it's basically even money. Donald Cerrone and Jorge Masvidal, again, almost an even fight. Minus 145 plus 125. Orlovsky's a pretty big underdog to Francis.
Yeah, and hey, when you see what Francis has been doing, the results are what people are excited about, not necessarily the moments.
The body of work.
Yeah,
and with another interesting one is Sterling, a plus 125 to Assunção, minus 145. I haven't bought on the hype of Sterling yet. I think it's too much for him,
and I think that's why people are feeling that way. There's this. Some of these guys, they need that breakthrough moment where they're in the shit, and then they come out of it and they're a new man.
Yep.
Do Ho Choi, Cub Swanson fight's one of my favorite fights of all time. That was one of my funnest breakdowns to ever do of all time.
Amazing.
And Do Ho Choi just became one of the greatest fighters in the world for having gone through that.
Yep.
And if Sterling goes through one of those, then I'll buy it. Then I'll see it.
Me too. That's fair.
But I like him though. I like watching him fight.
I like watching him fight. I think it's a tough task for him.
Yeah, it is. But the assignment is win on the outside, and he's been working on that game for quite a while, so he's in that fight. But it is a tough task for him. But man, if he's ever in one of those, you don't want to be great to go through your life and never be in one of those firefights. You'd be so skilled that you never have to take that damage. But the guys who do, it changes them for the better.
Yep. Look at Conor. Conor and Nate Diaz, that first fight at 170, he lost. He went through that. It's a good card, man. I'm excited about this card on Fox. It really is. It's a fun card.
Me too.
Should we do some fan questions?
Yeah.
Before we do a 10-hour podcast?
I just had a thought, too. If we're in L.A., is this out before the fights?
Oh, yeah. This will come out today.
If anybody on Twitter has a good place to watch the fights on Saturday night, let me know.
God, I don't know because I don't watch fights in public. Right?
Yeah, but if anyone's listening, watching, and watching...
Oh, you're going to get blown up. Yeah.
I mean...
You get some dudes like, come over to my house. I make the classic L.A. chili or some shit like that. And then you go over there and get raped, sir.
Yeah, right.
It's L.A. This isn't
I mean, I know how to
Toronto.
fight, but if there's like 4 of them and 1 or 2 of them know how to fight, you're fucked. Now you're raped.
Yeah, now you're raped and you're eating chili too.
Yeah,
so.
Fuck. I like chili.
I'd be careful though. Go to a public place.
Yeah, I will. So let's make it.
We don't
want
to get you hurt. Yeah, be nice to him,
place.
guys.
Yeah.
What do you got? Give us like 3 of them, Chin.
Sure. Let me skip this one then. So how about Charlie Stat? What fight might save the Brooklyn card?
God, that Brooklyn card is tough because they took Travis Brown.
Moved it
Derek
to
Lewis moved to Halifax.
Let's look at that Brooklyn card.
Yeah, bring that up because they got Holly Holm versus Jermaine.
Yeah,
is the
I like
main
that.
event.
But I'm a Holly Holm, mark. I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you like it, but it's not. It's a fun fight.
Yeah. Okay, so again,
This will get 7 pay-per-view buys.
So I have to first slip in that I like every fight. I like every single fight.
Ever.
And I'm dead serious.
Now come over to this side where you're selling me on the controller. Think how many pay-per-views this is going to get.
So Robin Black loves this card as much as he loves every card. But he's like a total dork. He's a complete dork who's obsessed with things on a weird level. So I'm going to buy the pay-per-view.
I am too. I buy every pay-per-view. But we're also balls deep in it.
Yes, we are. So
there's some fun
fights. There is some good
it.
fights, man, but I'm a fucking mark. We do this all the time in Toronto at Fight Network. It'll come up, and me and Ramdeen are like, oh, I like that one. And then eventually we're like, you like them all.
I know. I do like them all. But I can get how...
Jacare?
I can see how some people complain. So Jacare, Tim Boach, that's kind of like, all right, let's just keep Jacare busy because no one will fight him for the title right now.
Yeah, but I'd like to see him in action. So I'm excited to see him in action.
I'd rather him not fight. I'll take that. And Tim Boach is a tough customer.
Tim Boach is a tough dude.
He pulls shit out of his ass like the Okami fight.
So neither one of us, Big Brown breakdown, Robin Black breakdown, you don't need us to say that if it goes to the ground, Jacare...
No. If you can't figure that out, probably don't listen to this podcast.
You probably don't even... You're not interested in fighting. You're not hanging out with us.
If you don't know that?
That guy on the ground. And so what do you do? So think this is an interesting thing for me. You're the coach, and your guy's good, and he's really good, and he's always getting better and whatever. But you have to fight Damian Maia, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. This is true in wrestling. This is true in striking. But let's just keep it jiu-jitsu for now. You have to fight Jacare, or you have to fight Damian Maia. So what we can't do is just say out loud or let our fighter understand that we need to keep it on the feet and we need to keep him away from you. Otherwise, we automatically lose the fight. We can't acknowledge that.
No, because there's a good chance it's going to go to the ground.
So what do we do? So what do we do with him? We start, I think, to... So again, we don't have a lot of time. This is booked 6 weeks ago. If somebody said, you're fighting Jacare in a year... we're never going to get as good at jiu-jitsu as him, but what if we get as good at breaking out of moments? What if we get as good at getting back to our feet under certain scenarios, and we can get really good at pushing ourselves back to that one position from which we are very good at getting back to our feet?
So what I would say, and it's to your example of Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, I'd say don't do the traditional jiu-jitsu on the ground. It's in the transition, don't rest. Resting guard, that's not resting. That's going to get you finished. Resting half guard's going to get you finished. You have to nonstop move. Get your back to the cage, cage walk, and get the fuck out of there.
I agree. And
hand fight and do not play jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I agree. I agree fully. And there's there's a really cool moment you see in fights, and that moment used to last 10 or 12 seconds. Sometimes now it lasts a minute, where somebody is partially taken down or is taken down, and they just will absolutely not accept the position.
They refuse to accept the position.
And it's super cool.
You're talking about champions.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I remember George told me that. A guy took me down, I actually went to guard, and he goes, "You in a fight, that could cost you the fight. You should fight with tooth and nails to avoid that. But it's going to take way more work once you're down there, more energy once you're down there, instead of in those transitions making it count."
100%. It's so true. It's so
because it's the easiest thing to do.
Also, you're going to lose it. So now, I was about to say you've taken me down, but then you just kill me. So let's pretend you are the same size as me and 49 years old.
Yes,
and had a bad hip and then one leg. So you
and I'm blind.
Yeah, and you're blind. So you take me down, and I decide, and I have that philosophy that I never surrender the position. And you have that philosophy that I'm going to make this guy surrender the position no matter what. One of us is going to lose that battle. And the guy who loses that battle, the guy who wins it, has changed the moment of the fight. Because if I lose that battle, I expended all of that energy and then lost that battle.
And mentally, it takes its mark on you. Now you're talking about momentum, which I think wins fights.
Yeah.
And momentum, if a guy goes for a takedown and he almost gets it, but I pop up, I hip escape and get out, and he goes, "Well, that worked in traiing." Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah. And then their confidence starts to creep in.
Oh, shit is a bad thing, bad moment. But so there's an argument that momentum is nothing. There is no such thing as momentum. If you take the perspective that there's no such thing. If you're in
I would argue with that.
Yeah. You experience momentum, and you experience the feeling of momentum, and you can be affected by it, but it's not actually anything. If you are in half guard because
It'd be confidence.
Yes, but
which affects your mood and your capabilities of fighting or shooting or throwing a football.
But why does it affect your confidence? It affects your confidence because you interpret it as a bad thing. You interpret it as something bad has just happened. Oh my God, something bad has happened. The truth, just the blind truth, this is, gravity doesn't give a fuck if you believe in gravity. This is the truth. The truth of half guard, it really truly doesn't matter how you play half guard from a technical and a real life standpoint, whether I just passed your guard into it or you just regarded from mount. It's the same position. You are in half guard. And if you're in half guard, you know how to play half guard. And whether you just got punched, whether you just, and now, of course, the physical realities of the effect of your mind or fatigue or any of those things are real. But whether you got to half guard from, I just mounted you and hit you a few times and you got back to half guard, or that's a win for you. You've made a little win. But you were just mounted. None of it is real. All that's real is you're in half guard and I'm on top.
And the way you're saying you perceive it?
The way you perceive it. The meaning you apply is what creates momentum. The meaning that you apply to it, which is exactly the same thing as like you go in and you found out you got bad news about a show that you were working on you were very excited about. That doesn't really mean anything. No. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
That's just a truth. How you respond to that, it can inspire you. It can make you look at what's one thing that was different. It can make you write treatments better. It can be the best thing that ever happened to you. But how you interpret it is what, like I said, gravity doesn't give a fuck if you believe it or not. It's real. All that's real is you're in this moment doing this thing
how you react
and how you deal with it.
That's fair.
And so the momentum, good or bad, if you ride momentum because it's good, that's great. But we'd prefer you don't have momentum in any way. You don't agree that it exists. You deal with the moments, the truth of the moment in time. It's not true. The moment in time is true, whether you got there in a bad way or a good way. And in fact, there is no bad or good in moments. It's just the moment.
That is interesting.
You know?
Very interesting. To sum up this fan question, so myself and Robin love every fight card. There's no fight that could save this card. I guess
from a star
I guess
power
when you say
standpoint.
save, I guess if Brock Lesnar or CM Punk or Brad Pitt decide to fight, that would save as far as ratings. But overall, as a card, there's a lot of good fights on this card.
Yeah, Poirier and Miller. Anytime Miller fights, I'm going to watch it.
And Poirier.
Yeah, and Poirier.
Glover's, who's Glover's? I'm not familiar with the guy Glover's fighting.
Yeah, he's coming up. He's coming up, but
the Killa Gorilla.
Yeah, we don't know a ton about him. I've watched one of his fights.
Good chance that fight's going to end in a knockout.
Yeah,
but.
And at some point, this doesn't happen much. But, Glover has taken some really tough fights, and somebody has a conversation. It's like, look, maybe we don't need the toughest fight in the world right now. And a young guy is like, hey, man, I'm fucking ready for a top 10 guy.
Yeah.
And then we have this fight.
Yeah.
You get it.
If you're Glover, it's like, all right, this is better than fighting Alexander Gustafsson or, John Jones or DC or something.
Or is it? Because you get beaten by a young guy coming up and only his 11th fight, over. It changes his life and it changes yours.
In a dramatic way, yeah.
But in the fights themselves, we're like, shit, man, Poirier Miller is great.
I know, you look at it, you're like, a lot of fun fights.
Yeah.
So
but in the business part,
there.
in the business side, and you wonder, so you got new owners. Dana White at one time would have just done whatever the fuck it took to make this thing.
Dana White, before they sold it, would never let this happen.
He would do whatever it takes to find something to make this thing. We're never going to accept the 90,000 sales pay-per-view. That's just not. And if you're a fan of Dana White, it is his refusal to lose is something that you're a fan of, and it's something that can mutate into something not great when you're, but he wouldn't, this would be a rare occasion when, although Anderson Silva's fighting, Derek Brunson, that's an interesting fight.
It's all right. But now if I slip, going back to Dana White, now if I slip $400 million in your pocket, you're like, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
They call you home and whoever, Jermaine Durand, go ahead and do it. I don't care.
Yeah, maybe. It's a weird...
It's different owners.
Yeah, it's exactly. They're going to decide. You'd be like, hey, man, we got to spend some money and make this happen. They're like, we don't spend money for shit like this.
See, and that's why I think, and I was saying this on a previous breakdown, that I think WME needs to hire a guy like a Joe Silva, like a Robin Black, who's so in this world where they know the in and outs of it, where they go, I get what you're trying to do marketing wise, but make sure you guys are focused on this, because what made this company great is the forums, the chat rooms, the guys who know the ins and outs of the sport. If you just tailor to what the general public likes, you're going to lose out on something great over here.
Yeah,
man.
and
those are the guys that no matter what, even this UFC 209 card, they're going to buy it. Those are the 375,000 loyal fans. They're going to buy it. You don't want to piss those guys off and forget about them.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And but the thing is, they're going to buy it regardless. And they're also the only ones complaining, because my mom doesn't even know there's a fight card on. So the only ones complaining are the ones actually buying it.
The loyal ones.
You know,
It's a dangerous plan.
It is a danger. It is. There's no doubt about it.
What else you got, Chin?
Next question is from Sour Bluefeet. Robin, are you still friends with the guys from the Intergalactic Rock Stars? Are you ever going to play a reunion gig? Love from Hamilton, Ontario.
Hamilton in the house. Yeah, so I used to play in a band, and
you guys would travel, tour, legit band.
Yeah, super. Yeah,
sick.
Like we made
Would
2
you
records.
Sing or
I was
bass?
a singer. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So I was the singer, and we made 2 records. We made one of them with Garth Richardson, who produced Rage Against the Machine, and a guy named Mo Berg, who's a genius. And we made the other one with Garth and a guy named Bob Ezrin, who produced like Pink Floyd, The Wall, and like big shit. And I learned a lot from those guys. And I learned a lot from playing with like music now in retrospect. Expression and being creative and making shit and performing, I loved. But music itself, I like music, but it wasn't,
It's not your passion.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was singing in a rock band, wearing eye makeup and tight pants, and literally lots of girls chased us around. It was really cool. Because
Sounds awesome.
That kind of band, you actually get lots of pretty girls at your show. And we traveled Europe a bunch of times. We toured England. We went to Italy. We toured Canada a lot. They played us on like... the Canadian version of MTV was called Much Music.
Damn.
And so we did really well.
Legit band,
yeah. But I wanted to fight, and
you were the lead singer.
Yeah, I was the lead singer.
That fucks things up for the rest of the band.
They all are good musicians. They all do stuff. I'd like to play. I have played with them like once every couple of years, and it was really fun. But I've never been a great singer.
Yeah.
I worked hard enough to get passable. It was hard work in the studio to sound good. They didn't have the technology that you could fake it. You had to sing.
Yeah.
And then live, I put on a show, jumping and kicking and doing all kinds of stuff, and people liked it. We had pyro. But ultimately, fighting is the thing that I wake up in the morning obsessed with. So the second I realized that somewhere along the line you get this philosophy, if you're lucky or you should be grateful if you come across it, that you get this idea you can actually do shit.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want
and
run with it. And the day I decided, it was probably 9 months and 3 I now say it was over 9 years ago. I said, I'm going to commentate the UFC. And people are like, dude, like you wear eye makeup. Like I wasn't even training martial arts.
You have leather pants and eye makeup.
They said, sir, get serious.
Sir, that's
get
not
fucking
happening.
serious. And there's photos of me on the internet, nail polish and all this stuff. And it was really fun to dress up and do that. But I said, I'm going to commentate the UFC in 10 years. I have about 9 months left to be able to do it.
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I know I can do it. I've commentated 450 shows. Nobody's more passionate or prepares more than me.
Not only do I think it's going to happen, I think they need you. I really do, man. I believe that.
Thank you.
I really do.
Well, I mean, the truth of it is, I'm going to do this regardless. Like, as long as there's fighting, I'm going to be the guy analyzing it and trying to yell at everybody how great it is and why they should look at it. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get better at it every week and every month. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to take it further. And at some point, like you said earlier, it becomes undeniable.
Yeah, we'll end on that. I think it's just you becoming undeniable, man. I think it's only a matter of time. You just need the right vehicle, and I think you're doing the right things. And you're one of my favorites, man. You really are.
Man.
You're a guru of the sport,
Thank
and
you.
we need you. And I think anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't know the game. So I can't appreciate you enough coming all the way from Canada. I know you're busy, man, making time for this show. And I could do a 10-hour podcast with you. You and I got to
we'll hang out again soon.
I agree.
Yeah.
Anytime, man. Open door here, and we got to do this more.
Cool. Well, I come to LA at least a few times a year, so I totally will.
It's happening, man.
It's really fucking fun hanging out with you, man. Like, for real.
And for those of you that don't know, I mean, after listening to this, you're like, Jesus Christ. He actually is one of the few guys who can break down the sport better than anyone I know. So it's on Fight Network. It's on YouTube. and you have your podcast at Robin Black MMA, right?
Yeah. Hashtag Ask Robin Black at Robin Black MMA on Twitter. Did you tell people to vote for you on that MMA awards thing?
I didn't, man. I didn't. No.
People should vote for him on that MMA awards thing.
I'm in the same category as Rogan.
Yeah, I know. That's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, what can you do? But you're the best, man.
Thanks, man.
And it's Robin Black, everybody. So thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
So much fun.
That was super fun, man. That was super fun.
You're the best, brother.
Thank you.